Chapter 1236. Yellow Flower Ridge covered a large area. Shang Huaming could only occupy a few mountain peaks to the left of Manushi Peak, and their sect-protecting formation could only cover these areas. The deep area Xiao Yuehong was talking about was northeast of Yellow Flower Ridge. It was an extremely deep mountain forest, shrouded in fog all day long. The mountains were very high, the water was very deep, and the forest was very dense. Not to mention ordinary people. Even cultivators rarely saw it. Others might not know, but Xiao Yuehong knew that it was a taboo area of Shang Huaming's ancestors. The ancient records in the sect clearly stated that if one did not have a cultivation of the golden core stage, one should not go deep. Based on Xiao Yuehong's lazy personality, he most likely would not go deep in this life. But the fact that 100 Herbs Gate had come to propose marriage was a huge blow to him. Although this was a win-win situation, and it seemed that his daughter was somewhat interested in Jiang Fan, it was probably the wisest choice for him to nod and agree. But when he saw Jiang Jiantong of the 100 Herbs Gate take out the 2 foundation establishment pills so easily, and was so confident that he had no room to refuse, he felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. What is the 100 Herbs Gate? It's just a small sect that specializes in planting herbs. The cultivation method in the sect can only be practiced to the late stage of foundation establishment. There are no records of how to control, fuse, and condense the core. How can they compare to my Shang Huaming? Standing on the boat-shaped magic weapon, Xiao Yuehong flew into the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. He was still angry and thought to himself, how can I not know what this Jiang Jiantong is planning? He just wants my Shang Huaming's golden core cultivation method. He wants to trick my little Rue with 2 foundation establishment pills. How can it be so easy? Alas, but it seems that little Rue has a good impression of Jiang Fan. What's wrong with big brother and second brother? Their hearts have been eaten by dogs. They can't even compare to that dog like Jiang Fan. I'd like to see what kind of betrothal gift your 100 Herbs Gate can take out if my 2 disciples are in the foundation establishment stage. The more Xiao Yuehong thought about it, the angrier he became. He snorted and the boat sped up. With a whoosh, it flew into the distance. Cultivators had a long lifespan, and as their cultivation deepened, their lifespan would increase. A normal qi refinement cultivator could live up to 100 years old. When they entered the foundation establishment stage, their lifespan could reach 200 years old. When they entered the Aurus core stage, their lifespan could reach 300 years old. When they reached the nascent soul stage, their lifespan could reach a terrifying 500 years old. Although Xiao Yuehong's hair was white and he looked like he was in his 50s or 60s in the secular world, he was actually 90 years old. To be able to cultivate to the middle stage of foundation establishment in less than 100 years of age, Xiao Yuehong could be considered an extremely talented person. Cultivators had a long lifespan, and their main goal was to pursue longevity and realms. Unless there was someone who was deeply in love, or someone who cultivated both yin and yang, very few cultivators would spend extra energy on love. Even if it was for the sake of their descendants, they would still reproduce under the circumstances where the immortal Tao was indefinite. Xiao Yuehong also met Xiao Xianrue's mother when he was in his 60s, fell in love, and had Xiao Xianrue. Therefore, Xiao Xianrue was only 26 years old at this time. In Xiao Yuehong's eyes, it was really too early to talk about love, so he was not very anxious. Moreover, he had always been following the idea of keeping the goodies within the family, and had his eyes on Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao. The sudden appearance of Jiang Fan really made him feel uncomfortable. Xiao Hua respectfully sent Xiao Yuehong out of Manushi Peak and went to Lone Staff Peak himself. However, he only looked at Gong Mingwei and the others and asked what was going on. He did not explain why Xiao Yuehong went out. But when they saw Xiao Hua, not only Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao had a trace of anger on their faces, but even Xiao Xianrue had a trace of coldness. They all wanted to know the purpose of Jiang Jiantong's visit, but they also knew that Xiao Hua was the most principled. If Xiao Yuehong told them not to say anything, then no matter what method they used or what temptation they offered, they could not get half a word from Xiao Hua's mouth. Therefore, they could only return the look on their faces and did not ask. Xiao Hua did not care. Seeing that the 3 people ignored him, he stood at the entrance of the cave for a long time, cupped his hands and left with a smile. How could he not be happy in his heart? The space in his mind was really as he thought. All the spiritual herbs were growing healthily. A day in the space was equivalent to a year in the outside world. What he needed to do now was to wait for enough time and a suitable reason to take out the spiritual herbs of enough age from the space. Presumably, with these vitality-assimilating fruits and exquisite grass, Xiao Yuehong would be able to refine enough Peiyuan pill and foundation establishment pill. His dream of Xiao Yuehong saving him and Shang Huaming's cultivation would not be in vain. Xiao Hua returned to the medicine garden on Shihua Peak and finished his daily tasks. Seeing that there was nothing to do, he stroked his left ear and a flight talisman appeared in his hand. This flight talisman was a yellow talisman. As the name implied, it was a talisman made of yellow paper. There were 3 types of talismans in the cultivation world of the Xiaoyu continent. The lowest level was the yellow talisman, which was made of yellow paper made of special materials and then drawn with special paint and a special writing brush. As long as the cultivator of this yellow talisman was at the qi refining stage, the talisman would be activated when magic power was injected into the yellow talisman. If it was a flight talisman, then it could be attached to the cultivator's body to display the flight technique. If it was a fireball talisman, then it could release a fireball on the ground or in the air. As for the power of the yellow talisman, not only did it depend on the cultivator of the talisman, it also depended on the amount of magic power of the user. If one looked at the power of the yellow talisman, then it could be divided into high, medium, and low-grade yellow talismans. 1 grade higher than the yellow talisman was the spirit talisman. This spirit talisman was made from the fur of spirit beasts, and the talisman on the fur was drawn with the blood of spirit beasts. Needless to say, the fur of spirit beasts naturally had certain attributes, and the blood of spirit beasts contained the magical power of spirit beasts. When these two complemented each other, the might of a spirit talisman would be more than 1 level stronger than a yellow talisman. The spirit talisman was divided into high, medium, and low grades. There was also the supreme grade spirit talisman. However, although there were many spirit beasts on the Xiaoyu continent, they were all extremely difficult to catch. Therefore, there were very few spirit talismans that could be seen. Even in the time exchange market, there were only a few low-grade spirit talismans. Medium-grade spirit talismans were hard to come by, let alone supreme-grade spirit talismans. Those were only occasionally heard of in some large sects. The next grade higher than the spirit talisman was the jade talisman. As the name implied, this jade talisman was a talisman made from jade stone. Of course, this jade stone was not ordinary jade stone, but the essence of jade stone, commonly known as jade marrow. And what was used to inscribe the talisman in the jade marrow was also not the blood essence of spirit beasts, nor was it a special pigment, but the real heaven and earth spiritual energy. Speaking of yellow talismans, spirit talismans, and jade talismans, they were all used by cultivators to form hand seals and use the heaven and earth spiritual energy to assist. Usually, when cultivators used hand seals, not only did they have to expend their own spiritual energy, they also had to expend time when forming hand seals. If it was a crucial moment in a fight, a little bit of spiritual energy, or a moment of time in the latter, could be the key to victory or defeat. Therefore, cultivators tried their best to save time and spiritual energy, and these few types of talismans were the methods they came up with. Regardless of whether it was yellow talismans or spirit talismans, they all used yellow paper and spirit beasts' fur as carriers. In advance, they used special pigment and spirit beasts' blood essence to draw the talisman. Using the pigment and spirit beast's blood essence to retain the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the talisman. Because of the problem with yellow paper itself, even if spirit beast's blood essence were used to draw the talisman on it, that yellow paper would not be able to contain the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the spirit beast's blood essence. Furthermore, the heaven and earth spiritual energy contained in the special pigment could not possibly be more than the spirit beast's blood essence. Therefore, this caused the spirit talisman to be much more powerful than the yellow talisman. However, when creating the jade talisman, the heaven and earth spiritual energy was directly injected into the jade essence by forming hand seals. When the jade talisman was activated, the effect was exactly the same as when the hand seals were formed. Furthermore, there was another wonderful thing. The jade essence was the best at communicating with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. A good quality jade essence could even double the effect of the hand seals and mobilize more heaven and earth spiritual energy. Its power was even greater than if the hand seals were formed directly. Of course, the most exciting thing was not this. Yellow talismans and spirit talismans, due to the nature of their materials, could not contain more heaven and earth spiritual energy. Generally speaking, The talismans of nascent soul stage cultivators were the limit of what a spirit talisman could withstand. The so-called supreme-grade spirit talismans were made by nascent soul stage cultivators. Of course, nascent soul stage cultivators nurtured nascent souls within their bodies and were able to communicate with the heaven and earth. Their ability to use the heaven and earth spiritual energy was unimaginable to golden core stage cultivators. Therefore, unless it was a special need, they would rarely use spirit talismans and would not create any spirit talismans. This was also the reason why supreme-grade spirit talismans were so rare. However, jade talismans were not restricted by these restrictions. The amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that a jade essence could withstand was far greater than that of a spirit beast's fur. In fact, jade essence could be transformed into various shapes in the hands of a cultivator and become one with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. How could a spirit talisman compare to the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that a jade talisman could use? The classification of jade talismans was even simpler because they were extremely rare. Furthermore, depending on the cultivation level of the person who made the jade talisman, the difference in the power of the jade talisman was too great. Therefore, there were only two types of jade talismans. One was ordinary jade talismans and the other was heavenly jade. What was heavenly jade? It was a jade talisman that could directly communicate with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. Ordinary jade talismans were differentiated based on the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy it contained and the talisman's incantation. Heavenly jade, on the other hand, only contained the incantation and no heaven and earth spiritual energy. In other words, this heavenly jade was made by a powerful cultivator. This jade talisman did not contain the slightest bit of heaven and earth spiritual energy. It only contained an extremely high-level incantation. The person who used the heavenly jade only needed to send his or her spiritual energy into the heavenly jade. The incantation carved on the heavenly jade would automatically activate and absorb the heaven and earth spiritual energy from the surroundings to activate the high-level incantation in the jade talisman. It would allow a person with a low cultivation level to activate the high-level incantation that they were unable to use. Of course, spirit talismans were already very rare, let alone jade talismans. They were all things that only existed in legends. However, most cultivators had only heard of them and had never seen them with their own eyes. They did not even know what a jade talisman looked like. Chapter 1237. Xianxia is an insignificant small sect in the Xiaoyu continent. Xiao Yuehong is also not good at making yellow talismans. The yellow talismans used by Xianxia were all obtained by Xiao Xianrue and the others from the marketplace. What kind of high-grade goods could they be? However, it is also strange. Although Xiao Hua's realm is much lower than Gongmingwei and the others, and his magic power is even lower, the effect of his flying talisman is a bit stronger than Gongmingwei and the others. This low-grade flying talisman allows him to use the effect of a high-grade flying talisman. This makes Xiao Yuehong very puzzled. The other three are even more flabbergasted. In the end, only Zhang Qingxiao shrugs her shoulders, her eyes filled with playfulness as she concludes, Xiao Hua is a genius at escaping. Xiao Hua takes out the flying talisman. Just as he is about to use his magic power to activate it, he suddenly stops. His left hand brushes his ear, and he takes out a coiling snake-shaped thing. What the hell is this thing? I've been looking at it for 3 years. Why haven't I seen any clues? Xiao Hua stares at this fist-sized thing, facing the sunlight as he observes it from left to right. This is an incomplete thing. It looks like the middle section of a coiling snake. The snake's head is not visible, and the snake's tail is also not visible. Xiao Hua discovered it at the same time when he woke up and discovered the space in his mind. At that time, his space was empty, and only this strange thing was placed inside. In these 3 years, he doesn't know how many times he has looked at it, and he doesn't know how many methods he has used, but he still can't discover its mystery. But if you say this is an extremely ordinary thing, Xiao Hua won't believe it even if he is beaten to death. Take now as an example. Although Xiao Hua observes it against the sunlight, there should be a shadow of this thing on Xiao Hua's face. But strangely, there is no shadow on Xiao Hua's face. If that thing is transparent, Xiao Hua should be able to see the sunlight directly. But Xiao Hua can't see through it. He can only see the thin scales on its body. Also, if this thing is in the shape of a snake, at the place where the tail is missing, there is a small protrusion, as if there is another leg at the abdomen. Sometimes, Xiao Hua even thinks that this thing might not be a snake, It might be a dragon. Of course, this is also Xiao Hua's guess. He used 3 years but didn't find any clues at all. After looking at it for a moment, Xiao Hua stored the incomplete snake into his space. He then used a flight talisman and flew straight towards the cold pond at the foot of Cherishing Flower Peak. The cold pond of Cherishing Flower Peak was at the foot of the mountain and was about the same size as the pond of Lone Staff Peak. However, before Xiao Hua could fly to the edge of the pond, a dense cold qi was emitted from the pond. Looking from afar, there seemed to be a white mist above the pond. However, this white mist was different from the white mist of Lone Staff Peak. This white mist should be the water vapor above the cold pond that was frozen by the cold qi and formed into fine ice shards that fell down. Xiao Hua took a deep breath. The cold air that could cause frostbite to ordinary people, when Xiao Hua breathed it in, actually gave him a refreshing feeling. Xiao Hua also didn't understand why he wasn't afraid of this cold air. He remembered that when he fell into this cold pond and was found by Xiao Yuehong was extremely worried, afraid that his body would be frozen to death. But looking at it, there wasn't much of a problem. Only then did he sigh endlessly, exclaiming that Xiao Hua was lucky. Arriving at the side of the cold pond, Xiao Hua looked around. The pond water in the cold pond was dark green. Although it was extremely cold, the pond water didn't show any signs of freezing. In the surroundings of the cold pond, there were only shiny pebbles and hard soil. There wasn't even a single blade of grass. Papa! Xiao Hua raised his hand and clapped twice in the air. His eyes looked towards the center of the pond water. In a short moment, the pond water slightly churned and Little White drilled out of the pond water. Little White raised its head and its slender body swam extremely fast in the pond water. When it reached the edge of the pond, it curled up its snake body and nimbly shot onto Xiao Hua's arm. Haha, Little White. How about coming with me for a stroll around today? Xiao Hua extended his finger and stroked Little White's cool and smooth snake head. He said with a smile. It was unknown whether Little White understood or not. It raised its snake head and stretched its snake tongue. Okay, I'll take it that you agree. Xiao Hua said again. However, today, I can't take you out for nothing. You have to help me find a place that I usually don't pay attention to, or a place that Sect Head and the others have never been to. The place doesn't need to be too big. This big is good. As he said this, Xiao Hua extended his hand and gestured to a place with a radius of a few feet. That's right. Assimilating fruit grows day by day in the space. It's very easy to take it out, but how can I explain the origin of the assimilating fruit to Xiao Yuehong? In these 3 years, Xiao Hua had also walked all around Shihua Peak, but he didn't see any rare spiritual plants. Before Xiao Yuehong left, he only told him to take a look at the left side. If there wasn't a relatively hidden place, then it really couldn't be justified. Little White seemed to understand Xiao Hua's words and turned its head to look to the left. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. His figure flew straight towards the direction Little White's head was pointing at. After a short moment, he arrived at a barren mountain about half a li away from Lone Staff Peak. That barren mountain wasn't very high, only a few dozen feet. Standing on top of the mountain, Xiao Hua looked around and asked curiously, "Is there a hidden place here?" Hearing this, Little White jumped down from Xiao Hua's arm with a whoosh and landed on the ground. Its figure moved and swam towards the place where the barren mountain was connected to the nearby peak. Seeing this, Xiao Hua didn't say anything and quickly followed. When Little White swam to a place, its figure flashed and its white snake body disappeared. Little White! Xiao Hua stared blankly and shouted. A weak echo came from the underbrush in front of him. It seemed empty in front of him, as if there was some kind of cave. Ha! Could it be that there's a cave here that's covered by grass? Xiao Hua quickly walked a few steps and pushed aside the extremely lush weeds. Sure enough, there was a low cave that was about half a person's height in front of him. From inside the cave, there was a slight sound. It should be the sound of Little White swimming inside. Seeing this, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He stroked his hand and took out another thing from the space. It was the bright flower stone that was commonly used in the cultivation world of Xiaoyu continent. Xiao Hua crouched down and stuck his head inside. The bright flower stone in his hand illuminated the cave. This was an ordinary cave. It didn't look strange. However, the cave was very deep and it was dark inside. He couldn't see clearly what was inside. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, then curled up his body, held the Minghua stone in front of him, and flew along the low cave. He believed that if there was any danger in this cave, Little White would have already warned him, and seeing how Little White was so familiar with this place, did he come here often? The deeper he went into the cave, the more spacious it became. In the end, Xiaohua could already stand up. At the end of the cave, there was an even bigger cave. It seemed to be in the mountain peak beside the barren mountain. This cave was a bit damp. However, Xiaohua held the bright flower stone and looked for a long time. He didn't find anything good in this cave. There wasn't even a stalk of ancient spirit grass. It seemed that other than the mountain rocks, there was only moss. Ha! What is this place? Xiaohua walked to the innermost part of the cave and saw Little White swimming in a tranquil small pond. This pond was extremely small. It was only 1 zhang in radius. Well, it wasn't accurate to say that it was a pond. It should be said that it was a place where the water flowed in a roundabout way. From the top of this pond, there was something that quietly flowed in. It circled around the pond and then quietly flowed out from the other side of the pond. The entire process was silent. Hey, this water isn't flowing out from Shihua Peak, right? Xiaohua crouched down and touched the bone-chilling water in the pond. Then he looked at the stone wall above the pond that was half a person's height and said with a smile, 3 years ago, if I didn't meet you, would I have directly rushed into this cave from Shihua Peak's cold pond? Little White swam freely in the pond. Sometimes it stuck its head out and sometimes it dived into the water. It didn't pay any attention to Xiaohua. This place is also not bad. Xiaohua searched for a while. He wasn't disappointed because he didn't find any spirit herbs. He knew that if there were any spirit herbs here, Little White would have already led him here. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua took out the puppet from his mind and ordered it to casually flatten the ground. This would be the place where he would find the assimilation fruit and the exquisite grass in several dozen days or several hundred days. Little White at the side looked at him with a puzzled expression. After Xiaohua was done, it brought Xiaohua to look for a few more places. Apart from the difficulty of entering the early stage of qi refining, which depended on each person's cultivation aptitude, the early stage of qi refining was relatively easy. Basically, they could advance by 1 layer every year. The middle stage of qi refining began to become more difficult. Even with Gong Mingwei's aptitude and cultivation, it took him 8 years to cross the middle stage of qi refining. The late stage of qi refining not only required aptitude, but also the support of medicinal pills and other things. Therefore, Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xianrui used nearly 10 years to cultivate to the 10th layer of qi refining. Chapter 1238. Shang Huaming's 3 disciples were not much slower than others in the early and middle stages of the qi refining realm, and even surpassed others in some areas. However, in the middle and late stages of the qi refining realm, when the effects of the medicinal pills became apparent, they lagged behind others. Xiao Yuehong was also helpless in this situation. Shang Huaming's strength was barely satisfactory, and his selection of disciples was extremely strict. In addition, Xiao Yuehong was lazy and didn't like to expand his influence. He only relied on refining some low-level medicinal pills to survive, so he was stretched thin when it came to providing medicinal pills to his disciples. This time, if 100 Herbs Gate hadn't taken out the Foundation Establishment pill to stimulate him, Xiao Yuehong might not have been in such a hurry to go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to look for ripe and usable absorption fruits. He might even have been lying on a boat-shaped artifact and basking in the sun every day. Knowing Xiao Yuehong's temperament, Xiaohua also knew that Xiao Yuehong might not get to the bottom of the matter when he saw the absorption fruits. He would go to the place where the absorption fruits were picked to investigate with his own eyes, so he only concealed a few places. Just as Xiaohua was ready to wait for Xiao Yuehong to return, Xiao Yuehong had disappeared again. Previously, Xiaohua was afraid that Xiao Yuehong would come back quickly. The absorption fruits in the space behind his head were not ripe, so he couldn't take them out. Xiaohua silently told Xiao Yuehong to come back later, but after waiting for a period of time, about 20 days, Xiao Yuehong really didn't come back in time as Xiaohua expected. Xiaohua was a little uneasy. After all, in the 3 years that Xiaohua had been with Shang Huaming, Xiao Yuehong had almost never left Minzu Peak. It was even more impossible for him to disappear for 20 days. Moreover, in these 20 days, not a single messaging talisman flew back. On this day, just as Xiaohua was hesitating whether to tell Gong Mingwei that Xiao Yuehong hadn't returned for a long time, He felt that Shang Huaming's sect protection array had some changes. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He flew to the place where he had received Jiang Jiantong from 100 Herbs Gate. He threw out a yellow talisman, and a scarlet-red messaging talisman flew past. It opened a small crack in the formation and landed in Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua knew that this messaging talisman was for Xiao Yuehong, so he didn't dare to open it without permission. He could only take the messaging talisman and send it to Minzu Peak. Looking at the flashing red talisman, Xiao Hua pinched his chin and thought for a long time before he made up his mind and went to the pure heart cave of Solitary Staff Peak. What? Master, has already been in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge for more than 20 days? Gong Mingwei was shocked when he heard this. You? Why didn't you say so earlier? Zhang Qingxiao fiercely glared at Xiao Hua and scolded. Second senior brother, you can't blame me for this. The sect leader didn't allow me to tell you because he was afraid that it would affect your cultivation. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. But, this little brother didn't know if there was any problem with the sect leader being gone for so long. After thinking it over, I came up to report. Xiao Hua, don't mind it too much. Second senior brother is just a little anxious. Xiao Xianrui panicked at first, but she calmed down after a while. She first told Xiao Hua, and then said to Gong Mingwei, eldest senior brother, don't worry. I'm afraid that father went to that place to look for the absorbing fruit again. Sigh, junior sister, that's why I feel that it's inappropriate when I think about it. Last time, Master said that he was lucky enough to pick enough absorption fruits. He also said that he wouldn't risk his life so easily. Gong Mingwei sighed and said, but this time, he went to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. If he didn't go there, where else could he go? It seems that last time, Master didn't return for 20 days. Counting with my fingers. It's about time. Zhang Qingxiao lowered her head and thought for a moment before speaking. Master didn't send a message back? Gong Mingwei raised his head and asked Xiao Hua. No, Xiao Hua shook his head and replied. But, before he could say anything about the communication talisman, they heard a rumbling sound from outside the mountain. What's that sound? Xiao Hua's 5 senses were very sensitive, so it was very easy for him to hear it. What sound? Gong Mingwei was stunned. When he listened carefully, an even louder sound was heard. Io, not good. Someone's attacking our sect-protecting formation. Xiao Xianrui's mind was very sharp. As soon as she heard the sound, she realized. Quick, let's go take a look. Zhang Qingxiao didn't say anything else and ran out of the cave. Second brother. Without master's orders, how can we leave the tranquil cave? Gong Mingwei said anxiously. When Xiao Xianrui heard this, she put down her raised leg. They're already at our doorstep. Do we still have to reflect on our mistakes? Zhang Qingxiao didn't care about this. After running out of the tranquil cave, she turned around and asked, Junior sister, where's the flying talisman? Please ask eldest senior brother and senior sister to leave quickly. If the sect master asks, just say that I saw someone attacking our sect and ask senior brother and senior sister to leave. Xiao Hua was also a little anxious. He had been at Tranquil Cave for 3 years, but he had never seen anyone attack Tranquil Cave. Hee, when is it your turn to bear the responsibility? Although Gong Mingwei was apprehensive about his master's orders, he wasn't a stubborn person. He reached out his hand and took a flying talisman from Xiao Xianrui's hand. He placed it on himself and said as he flew, Xiao Hua, when master left, he gave you the magic tool to control the formation. Here. As Xiao Hua spoke, he took out the jade pendant that he had already taken out from his space and handed it over. He said, just now, there was a talisman that was used to transmit messages. I only used a yellow talisman to bring it in. I have yet to use this magic tool. Communication talisman? Who sent it? Gong Mingwei took the magic tool and asked curiously. This? I don't know either. I only put it on Mincy Peak. Xiao Hua said honestly. Go get it. Maybe it has something to do with the evil thieves outside. Yes, eldest senior brother. Xiao Hua flew back to Mincy Peak. By the time he brought the communication talisman back, Gong Mingwei and the other 2 had already arrived at the edge of the sect-protecting formation. In front of the 3 of them was a rather large mirror. In that mirror, They could see the situation outside the white fog of Yellow Flower Ridge. At this moment, there were more than 10 people around 30 years old dressed in navy blue clothes. They held some yellow talismans in their hands and some oddly shaped magic tools. They were constantly throwing fireballs, ice balls, water streams, and other things at Tranquil Cave's sect-protecting formation. From those magic tools, there were also very colorful lights. When those lights hit the formation, there were rumbling sounds. This was what Xiao Hua and the others had heard at Lone Staff Peak. 10,000 Poisons Sect. Xiao Xianrui saw all kinds of strange poisons on the sleeves of the disciples in the mirror and couldn't help but gnash her teeth. Did I, Tranquil Cave, provoke them or provoke them? They actually brought so many disciples to attack me? Behind the 10,000 Poisons Sect disciple who was attacking Shang Huaming, there was also a streak of light in the air. Above the streak of light stood a man and a woman, both in the Foundation establishment stage. The man's skin was dark and his face was ugly. His eyes faintly glowed with a cold light. The woman's clothes were brightly colored, her skin was fair, her figure was plump, and her eyes were full of affection. Seeing that the middle stage Qi refinement stage disciples were not attacking well, the man snorted coldly. Protector Liao, the disciples have been attacking for so long. That Xiao Yuehong of Tranquil Cave should have heard the commotion. Even if he didn't come out to fight, we didn't reinforce this formation? I'm afraid. There's no one in Tranquil Cave? You're right, Protector Zhen. If Xiao Yuehong isn't at Yellow Flower Ridge, then it's a great opportunity for us to take down Yellow Flower Ridge. Protector Liao's eyes turned flirtatiously. Her voice was also frivolous. Boy, quickly use all your magic power and take down Tranquil Cave. I have something good for you. Hearing this, the dozen or so disciples of the 10,000 Poison Sect were invigorated. Yellow talismans, magic weapons, and so on were all used to attack Tranquil Cave's Great Formation. Unfortunately, Tranquil Cave's Great Formation was set up by an Aurus Core stage ancestor. Although the Great Formation shook for a while, it was still too early to say that it was broken. Just relying on them won't work. Seeing this, Protector Zhen smiled. Previously, we were waiting here for Xiao Yuehong to appear. Now that he's not at Yellow Flower Ridge, why don't we make the first move? If we take down Yellow Flower Ridge, the strength of our 10,000 Poison Sect will increase greatly. We should be able to overcome the next obstacle. Yes, we'll do as you say, Protector Zhen. Protector Liao smiled charmingly. Now, I'll make the first move. If Protector Zhen is willing, how about we work together? Hee, if Protector Zhen doesn't mind, how can I refuse? Protector Zhen also laughed. His laughter was filled with vulgarity. Oh no, they're both at the Foundation establishment stage. If Father doesn't preside over our Great Formation, I'm afraid we're no match for them. Seeing that the two masters outside were about to make a move, Xiao Xianrui was shocked. Zhang Qingxiao was also panicking. She shouted anxiously, "Why isn't Master back yet? Xiao Hua, have you sent a messaging charm to Master?" Right, a messaging charm. Xiao Xianrui slapped her forehead. I don't have a messaging charm. Xiao Hua held the red messaging charm in his hand and smiled bitterly. I'll do it. Xiao Xianrui patted the storage bag on her waist, and a yellow talisman in the shape of a paper crane appeared in her hand. She said a few words on the top of the paper crane's head, and Xiao Xianrui injected her magic power into the paper crane. The paper crane first flew out, circled in the air a few times, then determined a direction, and suddenly flew out, turning into a light blue brilliance and flying towards the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. This messaging charm just arrived? Gong Mingwei pointed at the red brilliance in Xiao Hua's hand and said. Yes, it is. Xiao Hua handed the messaging charm over. No need to look. It's probably a letter of challenge from the 10,000 Poison Sect. Zhang Qingxiao had a well-thought-out look. The messaging charm just entered the Great Formation, and the 10,000 Poison Sect came. Do you still need to say it? Let's wait and see. As Gong Mingwei spoke, he poured his magic power into his hand and squeezed it. The brilliance of the messaging charm was crushed with a pop sound. A slightly familiar voice was heard. Sect leader Xiao, have you discussed this matter with your daughter? I'm eagerly waiting for good news. That voice belonged to the 100 Herb Sect's Jiang Jiantong. Xiao Xianrui was stunned and very puzzled. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao's faces suddenly darkened as they turned to look at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua shouted, "Oh no!" and was thinking about how to answer when he heard Jiang Jiantong say again, "Sect leader Xiao, please don't blame me. I was just casually asking. I didn't have any intention of urging you. The main reason for this message is..." Chapter 1239. Jiang Jiantong of the 100 Herbs Gate said, "Sect Master Xiao, my 100 Herbs Gate received a report yesterday that the 10,000 Poisons Gate might attack your sect in the near future. Of course, this information is not confirmed. The exact time is still unknown. Therefore, I hope that Sect Master Xiao will pay more attention. If there really is any movement, please send a message to my 100 Herbs Gate. Now that our two sects have formed an alliance, my 100 Herbs Gate naturally has the right to rescue Shang Huaming. It is also my 100 Herbs Gate's duty." "We have already formed an alliance with the 100 Herbs Gate?" Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiao Hua in surprise. Xiao Xianrui's face was flushed, and she looked at Xiao Hua without blinking. "This eldest senior brother, as long as you know, I didn't say anything." Xiao Hua shrugged and smiled bitterly. Then he realized, this communication talisman must have arrived a long time ago. "It's just that I didn't notice and just received it?" "Yes, it should be. This 10,000 Poisons Gate dares to have ideas about Shang Huaming. Their intentions are worthy of death." Gong Mingwei nodded slightly. He didn't know what to feel. "Senior sister, since the 100 Herbs Gate is our alliance, then why don't you hurry up and send a message? Let them come quickly?" Xiao Hua didn't like the 100 Herbs Gate, but, at this point, he could only ask for their help. Xiao Xianrui's face was slightly hot. She looked at the two foundation establishment experts of the 10,000 Poisons Gate and smiled bitterly. "100 Herbs Gate? Isn't it thousands of miles away from Shang Huaming? I don't have enough power to send this communication talisman to 100 Herbs Gate. Furthermore, there are foundation establishment experts outside the formation. The messaging talisman hasn't even flown for a moment before the sect's protective formation is about to be broken by them. What should we do?" Xiao Hua panicked and said anxiously, "Forget it, let's throw caution to the wind. Eldest senior brother, go out and kill those qi refining level 6 and 7 brats. Drag a few of them down with us." Zhang Qingxiao said fiercely. "Forget it," Gong Mingwei scolded. "There are foundation establishment experts outside. If you and I go out, we are just ants. How can we drag people down with us? Right now, the most important thing is to use the sect-protecting Grand Formation to guard the door of Shang Huaming and wait for Master to return. Or perhaps 100 Herbs Gate will receive more detailed information and come to our aid on account of our alliance with Master." Zhang Qingxiao bit her lips. Her eyes were wide open and her fists were clenched. She knew that what Gong Mingwei said was reasonable, but she still muttered a few words and kept her opinion to herself. "Eldest senior brother." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, there was a loud rumbling sound. It was as if the heavens and earth were shaking. Everyone's figures swayed a little. The mirror outside was immediately shattered, and the white fog gradually dissipated. "This is bad. Quick, let's inject all our magic power into this magical artifact." Gong Mingwei's expression changed greatly. He let out a loud roar and silently channeled his magic power into the jade pendant in his hand. Xiao Xianrui and Zhang Qingxiao did not dare to be negligent. They both poured their spiritual power into the jade pendant. The jade pendant instantly emitted a dazzling brilliance. When it was a little dazzling, the brilliance divided into 3 rays and shot towards different directions of the array. Rumble! Another loud sound rang out. This time, the sound was indeed earth-shattering, but the movement was much quieter. At the very least, no one was shaken, and the white fog slowly returned to its original state. Xiao Hua saw the 3 injecting their magic power into the jade pendant and hurried forward, ready to follow suit. But Gong Mingwei shouted, "Xiao Hua, you must not join. Our magic power is similar, and since childhood, our minds are connected. The 3 of us can use this jade pendant. If you join us, I'm afraid there will be a mistake. Moreover, your magic power is weak, so it won't be of much use." When it came to since childhood, our minds are connected, not only Gong Mingwei, but also Zhang Qingxiao felt a burst of sweetness in their hearts. That's right. Xiao Hua, just watch from the side. Watch how the three immortals of Shang Huaming defeat the evildoers of the 10,000 Poisons sect. The three immortals of Shang Huaming was a playful name that Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao and Xiao Xianrui used when they were young. When they grew older, they knew that this name didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, so they didn't dare to say it casually. At this time, Zhang Qingxiao was in a good mood and seemed to think of the beauty of the three little innocent girls when they were young. Xiao Xianrui's mouth was slightly smiling, and the corners of her eyes were curved. She almost wanted to rebuke. Sigh, seeing the three of them like this, Xiao Hua's heart also had an indescribable feeling. He was even more determined to plant the absorption fruit and exquisite grass. Moreover, he had also thought it through. Not only these spiritual herbs as long as his two senior brothers and senior sister, no, as long as they needed any rare spiritual herbs, as long as they could grow it, he would definitely give it to them. He wouldn't let his eldest senior brother, second senior brother and senior sister be separated, he wouldn't let the sect leader worry about the matter of medicinal pills, and he wouldn't let Shang Huaming be bullied by the other sects of the Dawn Rain continent. Boom boom boom, with three loud sounds in a row, Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation shook violently. The ground under Xiao Hua's feet also shook. Xiao Hua jumped up and floated in the air. Gong Mingwei and the other two looked at each other, their eyes full of horror. Their figures floated up, and the magic power in their hands poured into the jade pendant as if it didn't cost money. Outside the formation, in addition to the several qi-refining disciples who were still relentlessly attacking, the so-called Protector Liao and Protector Zhan also took out their own magic tools. Protector Liao was holding a human-shaped celestial artifact in his hand. The celestial artifact was in the shape of a woman with ample breasts and plump buttocks. Her two pink arms were stretched out on top of her head, holding a black bead. Protector Liao's hand was holding the human-shaped magic tool's waist. She sent her magic power, and a thin black gas was released from the black bead, shooting directly above the white fog of Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation. This black gas seemed to be the nemesis of the white fog. When it came into contact, not only did the white fog dissipate a lot, but even the formation also shook, making a rumbling sound. Ha ha ha. Protector Liao, your jade-like beauty doesn't seem to be useful. Protector Zhan on the side saw that Protector Liao's attacks didn't have any significant effect and couldn't help but laugh. This is nothing. Protector Liao's charming eyes were like silk, and her face was crimson. She smiled tenderly and said, I'm just warming up. As he spoke, he reached out and took out a red silk bag from his waist. He untied it, revealing a pink ball-shaped thing inside. This ball-shaped thing was hollow, and there were many triangular holes on the surface. It looked like a child's toy. Corpse poison butterfly? Seeing Protector Liao take out the small ball, Protector Zhan smiled and said, This little thing can break the formation? Protector Liao threw a flirtatious glance and said with a smile, If it doesn't, then I'll ask Brother Zhen to help. As he spoke, he muttered an incantation and pointed his finger. The small ball flickered and hundreds of butterflies with colorful wings flapped out of the triangular hole in the small ball. They grew bigger and bigger until they were the size of a palm. Then, they flew towards the white mist above Yellow Flower Ridge. The corpse poison butterfly was indeed useful. It flew above the white fog and quietly stopped in the air. It was unknown what kind of magic the corpse poison butterfly used, but the white fog around it began to gradually disappear. However, it was a pity that the white mist disappeared extremely quickly at the beginning, but its speed soon decreased. Moreover, the number of corpse poison butterflies was still too small. Only 100-foot wide area of the formation was affected. The other areas didn't have much of a change. How can this work? Your corpse poison butterfly is more like an itch. Protector Zhan rubbed his head and said when he saw this, You're laughing at me. I already said that I'm going to cooperate with you. Why don't I see you using your spear? Protector Liao twisted her waist, and the lines of her body also moved. It was very charming. Okay, here I come. Protector Zhan laughed wildly. He patted the storage bag on his waist and said, I'll let you taste the power of my immovable golden spear. Sure enough, as he moved his hand, he took out a golden spear from his storage bag. Protector Zhan then took out a few yellow talismans from his storage bag. He poured his magic power into the golden spear, and the golden spear suddenly became 2 feet long. Watch me. Protector Zhen leaped into the air, and the enlarged spear in his hand thrust forward. Like a phoenix nodding its head, it struck Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation 3 times in a row. The golden spear was very light in Protector Zhen's hand, but when it struck the formation, it was as heavy as a mountain. Dong, dong, dong. 3 consecutive sounds shook the formation. What should I do? Inside the formation, Xiao Hua flew in the air. His heart calmed down, and his mind spun rapidly. He wanted to find a way to deal with this. He also knew that Gong Mingwei was right. His cultivation was too low, and he really couldn't do anything. In a situation where 3 10th-layer qi refining cultivators were exhausted, he could only stand to the side and watch. I have to do something. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He now wished that he could reach the 10th layer of qi refining or foundation establishment in an instant. However, what could Xiao Hua, who was only in the 1st layer of qi refining, do? At this moment, there was another strong vibration. Protector Zhen, who was outside the formation, saw that his golden spear had no effect. He unconsciously became angry and threw the golden spear high up. He recited a spell and poured all his magic power into the spear. When the spear expanded several times, he pointed his finger. The golden spear was swung down like an arm, and directly smashed into the formation. When Protector Liao saw this, he also waved the beauty-like jade in his hand. Thick black gas flew out, aimed at the position below the golden spear, and directly sprayed it. With a loud bang, the black gas and the golden spear hit the same position of the formation at the same time. The formation shook for a while, and the white fog disappeared, revealing the flowers, grass, and mountain rocks under the formation. Even Xiao Hua and the other 3 could see clearly. At this time, Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xianrui had been separated by the shock. The jade pendant had dimmed, and it flew out of Gong Mingwei's hand and floated in the air. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect Shang Huaming's formation to be so easy to break. Why didn't the other protectors in the sect snatch such a good job from us? Protector Zhen laughed. Isn't it because Protector Zhen is lucky? Shang Huaming's Xiao Yuehong is not in the sect, and there are only 4 little things presiding over the formation. This formation. I'm afraid it won't be so easy to break. Chapter 1240. Just as Protector Zhen and Protector Liao of the 10,000 Poison Sect were attacking Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation, in the west of Yellow Flower Ridge, in the distant sky, behind layers of clouds, a flying shuttle was hiding its whereabouts. It was Jiang Jiantong and Jiang Fan of the 100 Herbs sect. Father, should we take advantage of this time to make a move? At this time, Jiang Fan was no longer in a daze in front of Xiao Xianrui. His eyes were fixed on the dim Yellow Flower Ridge in the distance, and he whispered, if we let the 2 foundation establishment experts of the 10,000 Poison Sect attack for a while longer, Shang Huaming's great formation may really be broken. Jiang Jiantong was very satisfied with Jiang Fan's calmness. He smiled and said, yes, Fan, I thought you were fascinated by the beauty of the Xiao girl and would go to rescue her at all costs. Looking at how you deal with things now, it's far from what I expected. Father, you praise me. This is all because you taught me well. As a cultivator, the goal is to improve our cultivation and seek longevity. Beauty and companions are just worldly possessions. The Xiao girl is attractive to boy, but compared with the Great Way, it's still not enough. Father, you can rest assured about this. Jiang Fan said with a smile. Well, then father can rest assured. Jiang Jiantong nodded, then looked into the distance and said, Fander, don't underestimate Shang Huaming. Although they only have 3.5 disciples, and the whole sect only has 5 people, they have been in existence for a long time. Our 100 Herbs sect can't compare with them. According to the records in the sect, Shang Huaming's disciples are sparse, and the number of people in the sect has never exceeded 100. Think about it, if such a small sect doesn't have any trump cards, how can it survive on the Dawn Rain continent? Father, you mean Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation is far from being as weak as we thought? Jiang Fan looked carefully into the distance, somewhat puzzled. Perhaps. This is a formation laid down by a gold core cultivator. Although the 2 protectors of the 10,000 Poison Sect are both at the foundation establishment stage, it won't be easy for them to break through it. Jiang Jiantong said with a smile as he stroked his beard. Jiang Jiantong looked very young, but he was actually older than Xiao Yuehong. He was already more than 110 years old. It was only because he had been using the youth-retaining items of 100 Herbs Gate all year round that he managed to maintain his youthful appearance. Although he was older than Xiao Yuehong, his cultivation level was slightly lower than Xiao Yuehong's. Furthermore, the secret cultivation method of the 100 Herbs sect only allowed one to reach the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Jiang Jiantong's cultivation level had been stuck at the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm for many years. Unless there was an accident or a fortuitous encounter, it was likely that he would not be able to make any further breakthroughs in this lifetime. Thinking back to his past self, who was in high spirits, and then looking at his own son, how similar were they? For the sake of the future of Spirit Grass Gate, Jiang Jiantong had no choice but to think of something else. However, today is also strange. A few days ago, I sent a messaging talisman to Shang Huaming. That messaging talisman was never put into Shang Huaming's body. It was only put in just before the 10,000 Poison sect attacked. Also, the 10,000 Poison sect has been attacking for so long. Why hasn't Xiao Yuehong shown himself? He's at the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, a bit more powerful than me. Although Xiao Yuehong can't kill the two early-stage Foundation Establishment Guardians of the 10,000 Poison sect, it's only right for him to scare them and expel them. Could it be that Xiao Yuehong isn't at Yellow Flower Ridge? Father is right. I'm afraid the 10,000 Poison sect has received news that sect leader Xiao isn't at Shang Huaming, so they've come to attack. Zhang Fan laughed. It seemed he wasn't too worried about Shang Huaming or Xiao Xianrui's safety. That shouldn't be the case. Father's messaging talisman was for Xiao Yuehong. If it reached Shang Huaming, that means Xiao Yuehong is at Shang Huaming. Could it be that Xiao Yuehong has the idea of catching a turtle in a jar? Jiang Jiantong was very puzzled. And that's not the most strange thing. Then what is it? Zhang Fan was stunned and turned around to ask. It's been 3 years since the war between immortals and devils ended. In the demon-resisting valley, all the experts of the Dawn Rain continent have returned to their respective sects to recuperate. The war of immortals and devils has always been a great calamity for the experts of my Dawn Rain continent. If they didn't increase their cultivation in the demon-resisting valley, then they would perish in the demon-resisting valley. The power structure of the Dawn Rain continent is bound to be turbulent and change. However, this should be a matter of 10 years after the war of immortals and devils. Currently, there should still be 7 years left. Also, Shang Huaming and our 100 Herb sect are just small sections. Even if we're affected, that's 10 years later. There's no reason for someone to have designs on Shang Huaming now. This 10,000 Poison sect. I can't see through them. Yes, Father is right. And if the 10,000 Poison sect really wants to capture Shang Huaming, they can't just send 2 early-stage Foundation Establishment Guardians, can they? Zhang Fan came to a realization and said, Boy may not know sect leader Zhao's cultivation, but how could the 10,000 Poison sect not know? Oh, Father, Boy understands. You didn't let them take action, but... Zhang Fan slapped his forehead and looked at Jiang Jiantong with great admiration. Father, do you know that the 10,000 Poison sect definitely has a backup plan and strong reinforcements, so... Haha, that's exactly the case. Fander, the cultivation world is a deep pool. There are hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The 10,000 Poison sect definitely wouldn't send 2 guardians to Shang Huaming for no reason. If they have any ulterior motives, they'll definitely go all out. If we go out now and Xiao Yuehong doesn't show up, won't we become Shang Huaming's shield? Boy understands. Also, the situation on the Dawn Rain continent is delicate now. Everyone is enduring silently and wants to fade out of the view of others and avoid 10 years of disputes. Even if the 10,000 Poison sect has designs on Shang Huaming, our 100 Herb sect has to carefully consider before participating. Otherwise, if other large sects see us, we might suffer an unexpected disaster. Boy understands. Jiang Jiantong looked back at the 2 elders and several disciples sitting cross-legged at the back of the flying shuttle and said with a smile, Let's wait and see. Everything is just speculation. The situation is unpredictable. The disciples and elders that our 100 Herb sect brought this time are comparable to the 10,000 Poison sect in front of us. Even if we want to take action, we have to wait for Xiao Yuehong to show up. Only then will we have a chance of victory. Compared to the leisurely Jiang Jiantong and the others on the flying shuttle, Shang Huaming Xiaohua and the others were panicking. Seeing Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xianrui being sent flying, Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He steadied himself and flew toward the jade pendant in midair. He grabbed it and poured his magic power into it. The jade pendant's originally dim brilliance gradually recovered with Xiaohua's magic power. Several faint rays of light shot toward Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation, and the disappeared white mist slowly reappeared. Of course, Xiaohua's magic power was still far inferior to Gong Mingwei and the others. Xiaohua used all his strength to stabilize the formation, which was on the verge of collapse. Ha ha ha, Protector Zhen sneered. He looked at the blurred scene inside the formation and said, "A mere qi condensation stage child dares to go against my will?" With that, a hideous smile appeared on his ugly face. The magic power in his body surged and he pointed at the golden spear in the air. The golden spear danced for a while and then shot toward the formation. ZZZT. Kacha. Kacha. The originally clear sky suddenly darkened. Countless dark clouds appeared above Yellow Flower Ridge for no reason. Within the dark clouds, faint flashes of lightning could be seen. Not only was the brilliance emitted, but even the sound of thunder could be heard. This. Protector Zhen was stunned. The golden spear in the air unconsciously stopped. What's going on? The change in the weather happened in an instant. It was far beyond his imagination. Ah! That's... Protector Liao, who was behind Protector Zhen, screamed in disbelief. When Protector Zhen turned around and followed. No, he didn't even need to follow Protector Liao's finger. In the sky to the west of Yellow Flower Ridge, there was a huge cloud and mist. Within the cloud and mist, a rather large dragon head poked out of the cloud and mist. Two huge lantern-like eyes flickered with a ferocious expression as they stared at the two protectors. Behind the dragon head, a thick and meandering dragon body covered in huge scales swayed in the cloud and mist. A flood dragon? How is this possible? Protector Zhen was an expert in raising poisonous creatures in the 10,000 Poisons sect. He had a certain understanding of the demon beasts of the Dawn Rain continent. He had never thought that he would be able to see a so-called flood dragon with his own eyes. No, this isn't a flood dragon. In his shock, Protector Zhen suddenly saw the huge horn on the dragon's head that hadn't formed yet. He looked at it carefully. The entire dragon's head was vivid and lifelike, but it was obviously a little blurry. Between the flickering lights, he could vaguely see the snake's head under the dragon's head. A giant python that has transformed into a flood dragon. Protector Zhen came to his senses, but he looked at the thunderclaps in the sky with a puzzled expression. A giant python with a profound cultivation base could transform into a flood dragon, but he had never heard of a flood dragon that was accompanied by thunder and mist when it appeared. How could he be thinking at this moment? Protector Zhen shouted, "Let's go!" The cultivation base of this giant python that has transformed into a flood dragon is comparable to that of a nascent soul realm cultivator. It's not something we can compare with. As he spoke, he pointed his finger. The golden spear turned into a golden light and flew to Protector Zhen's feet. Just as Protector Zhen's voice sounded, an incomparable pressure came from the dragon's head. Protector Zhen's heart turned cold. He didn't even dare to scan with his divine sense or look at the dragon's head. He activated his magic power, and the golden spear under his feet trembled slightly and was about to fly into the sky. Protector Liao was in an even worse state. When the pressure of the flood dragon came, she actually fell from the sky. She had only fallen for about 3 meters when a big red brocade handkerchief wrapped around her curvaceous body. After a slight pause, she was also shot into the air. The two protectors of the 10,000 Poisons sect fled for their lives, but when they looked at the flood dragon, their eyes were filled with endless mockery. The dragon opened its mouth, and an incomparably cold water-blue brilliance swept towards the two protectors. The brilliance was very fast. Protector Liao and Protector Zhen had only flown a few feet when the brilliance caught up with them. Before they could do anything, an incredible scene occurred. Chapter 1241. The aqua-blue light swept past the two enforcers. The two enforcers immediately froze in midair. Then, different lights flashed from their bodies, and they were annihilated. Then, a thin layer of ice appeared on their bodies. The layer of ice changed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it turned from a thin layer to several inches. They became 2 ice cubes in midair. The 2 protectors had actually been frozen in this block of ice. Through the transparent ice, one could see the 2 enforcers' terrified expressions and disbelief. The golden spear under Enforcer Zhen's feet and the red handkerchief on Enforcer Liao's body were both frozen in ice, losing their luster. The other aura-refining disciples attacking the Great Formation were even worse off. They tried to escape as soon as the Flood Dragon appeared, but how could their flying talismans compare to the 2 enforcers' magical weapons? When the aqua-blue light swept past, they were all frozen in midair. Gotcha! A golden lightning bolt fell from the sky and struck the left side of the Flood Dragon. The Flood Dragon's eyes were filled with reverence. Its head looked up at the sky, then it opened its mouth and blew forward. Bang bang! A series of sounds rang out. The 2 enforcers of the 10,000 Poison Sect and several aura-refining disciples were all blasted apart. Their bodies in the ice exploded into tiny pieces, scattering into the air and disappearing without a trace. Even the so-called golden spear and embroidered handkerchief had disappeared without a trace. Rumble! Another wave of thunder roared. The Flood Dragon was shocked. It twisted its body, and its huge body and head quickly shrank. As the Flood Dragon shrank, the endless dark clouds and lightning in the sky also gradually disappeared. When the Flood Dragon turned into a small white snake, the clouds and lightning also disappeared, and the sky became clear once again. This little white snake was actually Xiao Hua's Little White. Little White descended from the sky. Its snake tongue extended and retracted, and it looked behind the clouds where the 100 Herbs sect was. Then, with a twist of its body, it shot into the Great Formation protecting sect like a flash of lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, behind the clouds in the distance, on the flying shuttle of the 100 Herbs gate, Zhang Fan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the similarly dumbfounded Zhang Jiantong, he said in a low voice, "Father." "Shoo! This isn't the place to talk." Zhang Jiantong immediately stopped her. He formed an incantation gesture and sent his magic power into the flying shuttle. The flying shuttle quietly flew bit by bit into the distance. Only after flying for a long time did Zhang Jiantong dare to increase the speed. After a while, Zhang Fan finally asked, "Father, is that Shang Huaming's guardian demon beast?" When Zhang Jiantong heard this, he slowed down the speed of the flying shuttle and handed it over to an elder beside him to control. Only then did he smile bitterly and say, "Fanner, is there still a need to say this? If it wasn't Shang Huaming's guardian demonic beast, which demonic beast would be so bored as to come and kill people? This demonic beast looks like a flood dragon. It seems that I've only heard that the Tai Ching sect's guardian demon beast is a flood dragon whose cultivation is comparable to a nascent soul cultivator. How could Shang Huaming have such a powerful demon beast?" Zhang Fan was still in disbelief. "Sigh, I've never heard of it before. This is also the first time I've seen it." Zhang Jiantong also smiled bitterly and said, "No wonder Shang Huaming has a long history and only a few disciples are not afraid of the risk of the sect being destroyed. It turns out that they have such a powerful flood dragon protecting the sect." Sigh, looking at the pressure of this flood dragon, even if it's not at the nascent soul level, it's not far from it. Isn't that so? The Tai Ching sect's flood dragon is only at the nascent soul level. Shang Huaming's can't possibly surpass the Tai Ching sect's. This is even better. With Xiao Yuehong's strength, our 100 Herbs sect's alliance with Shang Huaming will have more prospects. Zhang Jiantong's eyes flashed with a strange light. He looked at Zhang Fan and said, "Although our plan may need to be adjusted slightly, it seems like this is a rare opportunity. Maybe Shang Huaming's cultivation method is not only at the golden core stage." Zhang Fan said with a smile. "Yes, we must have a good relationship with Shang Huaming. Fan, immediately ask Fan to send a message to Xiao Yuehong's girl, or you can go and visit her in person. This is very important. You can't be careless." Boy understands. Xiao Xianrue is still shy because it's her first awakening of love. Let sister invite her to the 100 Herbs sect first. After a long time, boy will be sure. Good, Zhang Jiantong stroked his chin and was very satisfied with Zhang Fan's answer. He smiled and said, "Just that demonic beast comparable to the golden core stage, everything we do is worth it." What Jiang Jiantong didn't know was that, just as they were carefully driving the flying shuttle to escape, a faint brilliance flashed in the air not far behind them. A tall, handsome Taoist with a white face and no beard appeared out of thin air. He looked at the brilliance of the flying shuttle and snorted. 100 Herbs Sect. Wants to ally with Shang Huaming? Some insignificant small sects really have a lot of ideas. Then he turned his head and looked at the restored Shang Huaming formation and frowned. Why does the Flood Dragon have a cultivation comparable to that of a divine transformation stage cultivator? The one in the Tai Ching sect is only a nascent soul stage cultivator. If that's the case, I'll have to change my plan. It doesn't make sense. Demonic beasts should be able to transform when they reach the divine transformation stage. Why is this Flood Dragon still? The Taoist frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. The Taoist's face suddenly showed surprise. Needless to say, why am I so stupid? Didn't the ancient books in the sect occasionally mention the dragonization incantation? It must be. This Flood Dragon's body is not that of a Flood Dragon, but of a python, or even a snake. No wonder the dragon head was illusory just now. Only this python has the dragon transformation art, which allows it to transform into a dragon. Only its original form is a python, and its cultivation has yet to reach the transformation realm, which is why it can only transform into a dragon. Only the dragon transformation art can have such powerful power. The dragonization incantation is a rare body refining technique in the world. Cultivators in the human world only need to cultivate to the 3rd level of the dragonization incantation. Then they don't need to fear the lightning tribulation. My goodness, I still want the Flood Dragon's inner core. If I don't ask the 10,000 Poison sect to test it out, wouldn't I be buying the casket and returning the pearl? It's just that this Flood Dragon is already at the divine transformation stage, and I am only at the late stage of the nascent soul stage. I'm still not its match. Don't tell me. I need to find a helper? The young Taoist was hesitant. But then the Taoist's eyes lit up. Look at the Flood Dragon's appearance, accompanied by the lightning in the sky. I'm afraid this Flood Dragon has reached the crucial point of transforming into a dragon? If I wait until it transforms into a dragon, then it's at its weakest. Perhaps I will have a chance? However, this opportunity is fleeting. If I don't seize it, I won't have another chance in the future. Forget it. At worst, I'll just share the inner core with others. The young Taoist seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at Shang Huaming and smiled meaningfully. Then, his figure turned into a rainbow and shot in another direction. Jiang Jiantong, who was at the foundation establishment stage, didn't know that a late nascent soul stage expert was hiding behind him. Xiao Hua and the others behind Shang Huaming's great formation were even more unaware. When Xiao Hua channeled his transcendence energy into the jade pendant, the grand formation gradually began to recover. It was already impossible to see what was happening outside. Therefore, when thunder rumbled outside the grand formation and Little White transformed into a flood dragon and killed the two 10,000 poison sect protectors and several aura refining disciples, Xiao Hua didn't know about this. He thought the invaders from the 10,000 poison sect were using a new divine ability, so he only channeled what little transcendence energy he had into the jade pendant to quickly restore the grand formation's white fog. Gong Mingwei and the others did the same. They climbed up from the ground and also sent their magic power into the jade pendant, wanting to help Xiao Hua stabilize the great formation. Although they were prepared to be defeated again, they waited for a long time. Even when the thunder stopped outside, there were no more attacks. Their eyes were filled with confusion. They didn't know what was happening outside. Xiao Xianrui said nervously, "Senior Marshal Brother, how about we take a look outside? Is the magic power in your body enough?" Gong Mingwei smiled bitterly. Xiao Xianrui shook her head. Zhang Qingxiao also shook her head. Of course, they didn't ask Xiao Hua at all. "How about this, Junior Marshal Sister? You rest for a while and recover your magic power. Then, we'll take a look outside. With us here, this great formation should be fine." Gong Mingwei thought for a moment and said, "Yes, Senior Marshal Brother." Xiao Xianrui nodded and took out a spirit stone from her storage bag. She sat cross-legged and absorbed the spirit energy of heaven and earth inside. After the time it took to eat a meal, the outside was still calm. Even Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao took their hands off the jade pendant. Xiao Xianrui opened her eyes and took the jade pendant from Xiao Hua's hand. She muttered something and her fingers formed a seal. Then, she waved the jade pendant and a mirror appeared in front of everyone. The place where the protectors of the 10,000 poison sect were just now was reflected in the mirror. Strange, why? Is there no one? There's no trace of them at all. Xiao Xianrui felt strange when she saw that everything was as calm as usual. She looked around Shang Huaming's body, but she didn't find anything wrong. What's going on? Xiao Hua was also puzzled. He almost wanted to go out and see what was going on. Of course, he immediately thought that this might be the 10,000 poison sect's plan to lure the snake out of its hole. But they almost destroyed the Great Formation just now. Is there still a need to lure the snake out of its hole? Xiao Hua thought again. Gong Mingwei and the others obviously had the same idea. However, no one dared to go out and release the Great Formation. In the end, everyone decided to wait and see. Of course, in order to deal with the sudden change, the three of them decided not to return to the Tranquil Cave. They all stayed behind the Great Formation. If the 10,000 poison sect made any moves, they would be able to react in time. Contrary to Xiao Hua and the others' expectations, another 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Not a single person from the 10,000 poison sect showed up. The entire Yellow Flower Ridge was as peaceful as before, causing the four of them to scratch their heads in confusion. They really couldn't understand why the 10,000 poison sect was attacking so anticlimactic. At the same time, Xiao Hua and the others were even more worried about Shang Huaming's sect leader, Xiao Yuehong. There had been no news from him for more than a month. They didn't know what had happened in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Chapter 1242. On this day, it was already late in the morning. Xiao Hua and the other three sat cross-legged, looking at each other. No one dared to speak. Everyone's eyes were filled with anxiety, but no one could do anything. Suddenly, a red light flashed, and a communication talisman fell from the sky and landed in front of Xiao Xianrui. Master. A message from Sect Master? Xiao Hua jumped up and looked at the communication talisman in front of Xiao Xianrui excitedly. Although no one knew the contents of the communication talisman, it meant that Xiao Yuehong was fine. How could they not be happy? Io, father is injured. When Xiao Xianrui picked up the communication talisman, she crushed the light and heard Xiao Yuehong's voice. Her expression changed greatly. Where did he come from? How is his injury? Gong Mingwei asked quickly. Father didn't say the specific injury. He only said that he would be back soon and asked us to hold on for a while. Xiao Xianrui's expression was uncertain. Hold on for a while? Zhang Qingxiao was a little stunned. Master. He didn't just receive the communication talisman, did he? Let's go. Let's go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Maybe we can meet Master. Gong Mingwei made a prompt decision. He threw out a flying talisman and flew up first. When Xiao Hua was about to leave, he heard Gong Mingwei say, Xiao Hua, don't go. You just stay here and guard. If there is any movement, immediately send a message to us. With that, Xiao Xianrui threw down a communication talisman. Yes, little brother understands. Xiao Hua took the flying talisman and put it in his arms. He watched the three of them fly into the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. The direction was exactly where Xiao Yuehong went. After the three of them disappeared, Xiao Hua sat down cross-legged and focused his attention on the space behind his head. Inside the space, the small medicinal field that was arranged by the puppet was growing luxuriantly at this moment. The light ball in the space was still constantly rotating, and the radiance that was constantly sprinkled evenly on the various spiritual grasses in the medicinal field. It was just as Xiao Hua thought. In the 30 days, the spiritual herbs in the space had been more than 30 years old. Although Xiao Hua had never seen a real 30-year-old spiritual herb, during the 3 years he had been in Songhua Underworld, he had taken care of the medicinal field while doing some chores. In his free time, he had also read some ancient books in Songhua Underworld sect. Shang Huaming's records were divided into two types. One was a jade slip made of jade and other materials. It was specialized in recording large amounts of information. Furthermore, Shang Huaming's unique restrictions could be placed on the jade slip to prevent the disciples of other sects from spying on it. This kind of jade slip could only be read by those with divine sense, and divine sense was a divine ability that only late-stage qi refining disciples could possess. The books that Xiao Hua was looking at were of the second type. They were similar to the books that were commonly seen in the secular world. However, some of them were recorded on paper, while others were recorded on special silk. Cultivators were different from the people of the secular world. Not only were their lifespans long, their inheritances were even longer. Some of the inheritances were recorded using special silk and special brushes and inks in order to be preserved generation after generation. From Shang Huaming's records, Xiao Hua had learned a lot of spiritual herb planting and basic alchemy techniques. Unfortunately, in cherishing Flower Peak's medicinal field, the oldest one was an absorption fruit that was more than 10 years old. He had never seen one that was more than 20 years old. As for alchemy, Xiao Hua's cultivation was only at the first stage of the qi refining realm. Those alchemy techniques were all rote memorization, and he didn't even have the slightest chance to put them into practice. Compared to Shang Huaming's records, Xiao Hua looked at the top of the 1-foot-tall, dark green, bamboo-like spiritual herb in the space. There was a thumb-sized fruit that was so red that it had already turned purple. He couldn't help but be delighted. This was precisely the appearance of an absorption fruit that was more than 30 years old. The absorption fruit grew at the top of the absorption grass. When the absorption grass was 10 years old, it would grow into an absorption fruit. At that time, the absorption fruit would be the size of a bean and green. After the absorption grass grew into an absorption fruit, it would no longer change. It would only absorb the essence of the world's origin energy and send it to the absorption fruit at the top. As it grew, the absorption fruit would gradually grow bigger, and its eyes would also gradually turn red. A 20-year-old absorption fruit should be the size of a thumb and pure red. Only after another 10 years of growth would this absorption fruit turn purple. And the purple absorption fruit was precisely the main ingredient for refining the Peiyuan pill. After looking at the main absorption fruit, Xiao Hua looked at the other spiritual herbs. They also had the same appearance of being 30 years old. Even the parasol peak grass and blood-devouring grass used to refine the parasol celestial pill. These ordinary spiritual herbs that were usually only used for a few years were now terrifyingly old. If Sect Master saw this, wouldn't he be so shocked that his jaw would drop? Xiao Hua was somewhat proud of himself. If a 30-year-old spiritual herb was used to refine the parasol celestial pill, then its efficacy, how astonishing would it be? The next time Senior Marshal Brother and Senior Marshal Sister go to East City, I'm afraid that they will really be snatched away by someone. The corners of Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a smile. He couldn't help but think of these things that were both funny and exciting. Unfortunately, it had only been 30 days, and there still wasn't any movement in the area of the exquisite grass. The seeds of the exquisite grass hadn't sprouted. However, Xiao Hua's heart was also calm. He already had a 30-year-old absorption fruit, so how could he not have a 300-year-old exquisite grass? The cultivation period was long, and although he was still in the first layer of the aura refining realm, he could still wait for a year. Oh right, I have to put the puppet back in the medicinal field. If Sect Master suddenly went to the medicinal field, it would be hard to explain. Looking at the puppet standing beside the medicinal field in high spirits, Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. Also, Sect Master told me to use the puppet sparingly, afraid that he didn't have enough spirit stones. I've never been stingy. As Xiao Hua thought this, he flew to Shihua Peak. When he took the puppet out of the space, he opened the mechanism behind it and took out the spirit stone. Xiao Hua couldn't help but frown. It wasn't because the spirit stone had been used up too much, but rather, the spirit stone looked the same as the one he had just put in. It didn't turn white or dim because it had been used for several tens of days. That's strange. I remember that when I used it 3 years ago, I had to give it a spirit stone every 100 days. The Sect Master gave me the puppet and the spirit stones this time, so he probably took them back when the spirit stones were used up. But why does the spirit stone look like it hasn't been used at all? Xiao Hua's eyes turned and widened. This? The light of the cube, it can't be that it can also replenish the spirit stone in the puppet. My goodness, if that's the case, wouldn't the puppet consume even more of the cube's light if it's inside the space? Xiao Hua didn't know when the cube's light would be used up, so he wanted to shine all of the light on the spiritual plants to reduce unnecessary wastage. Okay, I'll leave the puppet here first. After a while, When Sect Master is refining the Peiyuan pill, I'll send it back to the space. The light of this space is really amazing. It's really like a sun. I'm afraid I'll need more spiritual plants in the future, so there's no harm in expanding the medicinal field. With a whoosh, a summoning talisman flew over. Xiaohua, quickly come to Minxi Peak. It was Xiao Xianrui's voice transmission. Sect Master is back. Xiaohua's face was overjoyed. He threw the puppet on the ground and was about to fly up, but after thinking for a moment, he took out a dozen or so purple absorption fruits from the space and put them in a jade bottle from his room. Only then did he fly up and go straight to Minxi Peak. When he arrived at Minxi Peak, in front of Shang Huaming's main hall, he saw a beam of light flying over from not far away. Xiaohua went to meet it. It was Xiao Yuehong's boat-shaped magic tool. Seeing Xiao Yuehong standing upright on the flying boat, Xiaohua's heart warmed slightly. When he looked carefully, he saw that Xiao Yuehong's face was deathly pale, and the Taoist robe he was wearing wasn't the same one he wore when he went out. Presumably, he encountered some danger in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. His Taoist robe was also torn. When the flying boat approached and landed on Minxi Peak, Xiaohua took a few steps forward and bowed. Greetings, Sect Master. Xiao Yuehong was just about to raise his hand when Xiao Xianrui jumped down from the flying boat and reached out to support him. Xiao Yuehong smiled wryly. Little Rui, father was only slightly injured. There's no need for this, right? Then he turned to Xiaohua and said, It's fine. Don't worry. As long as Sect Master is fine, that's good. When Xiaohua saw this, he felt a great sense of relief. Xiao Xianrui helped Xiao Yuehong off the flying boat. After Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao came down, Gong Mingwei pointed a finger at the flying boat, causing it to rapidly shrink and fall into his hand. Only then did he hand it back to Xiao Yuehong. Io, even eldest senior brother is in charge of the flying boat. Sect Master's injuries aren't light. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Following which, everyone entered Shang Huaming's main hall. This was a huge hall. At the head of the hall was the Sect Master's seat. Below him were many seats on the left and right. They were all for the elders, protectors, and disciples. At this time, Shang Huaming only had 5 people. When they walked into the main hall, it was really spacious. Therefore, Xiao Yuehong rarely let them come here. However, although Xiao Yuehong's face was pale today, his spirit seemed to be very good. He was actually happy to bring everyone to the main hall. Xiao Yuehong walked to the seat of honor in the middle and sat down. Gong Mingwei and the other 2 also sat down on Xiao Yuehong's left side. Xiao Yuehong looked at Xiaohua who was standing and waved his hand. He pointed to a seat on his right and said with a smile, Xiaohua, you also sit. Sect Master, this disciple doesn't dare. Xiaohua hurriedly bowed and shook his head. This is the seat of an official disciple of Shang Huaming. This disciple hasn't cultivated to the 3rd layer of qi refining, so this seat can't be taken. Haha, sit. If Master says you can sit, then you can sit. Xiao Yuehong laughed. This. Xiaohua thought for a moment and still shook his head. Thank you for your kindness, Sect Master. Let's wait for a while. Haha, you child. Xiao Yuehong seemed to like Xiaohua's serious temperament very much. He waved his hand and said, Then come to Master's side. Yes. Xiaohua accepted the order and walked to Xiao Yuehong's side. It seems you want to take the Peiyuan pill immediately. Your cultivation will definitely improve by another level, Xiao Yuehong said with a smile. This disciple doesn't dare. Xiao Yuehong's words were correct, but Xiaohua only smiled and bowed. Daddy, you picked an absorbing fruit? Xiao Xianrui asked in surprise. Cough cough, Xiao Yuehong coughed for a while, then his face flushed red. He patted his hand and took out several jade bottles from his storage bag. From one of the jade bottles, he poured out a purple absorbing fruit the size of half a thumb. He smiled and said, Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I only got a few. It's a pity. It's not old enough, but it can still be used. Chapter 1243. Although Xiao Yuehong's tone was regretful, the expression on his face was quite proud. When Xiaohua saw this, his heart ached for no reason. It was as if he saw a kind father showing off to his children the good gift he had found for them. When talking about this precious gift, this kind father only talked about the flaws of the gift. He didn't talk about the hardships he had to go through to obtain this gift. Father. Xianxia, of course, heard this and her eyes turned red. Disciple is untalented and made master. Work hard. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao also felt uneasy and stood up. Hee, it's okay, it's okay. Master has been there before. This time, it's just a revisit. It's no big deal. It's just that Master was careless for a moment. Now, didn't I come back safely? Cough cough, speaking of this, Xiao Yuehong coughed again. Wait for Master to meditate for a while. Then I'll open the furnace and refine pills. With these absorption fruits, I should be able to refine a few Peiyuan pill. Master, you should rest first. When your injuries are completely under control, it won't be too late to refine the Peiyuan pill. Zhang Qingxiao said emotionally. Time waits for no man. Xiao Yuehong had obviously heard Gong Mingwei and the other two talk about how the 10,000 Poisons sect attacked the sect protecting Great Array. Although he didn't know the strangeness, he understood that someone was targeting Shang Huaming. If you don't quickly improve your cultivation, it will be troublesome if the 10,000 Poisons sect sends people again. Gong Mingwei and the other two had seen the ferocity of the 10,000 Poison sect's attack and knew that what Master said was true. They could only nod silently. That sect master. Seeing Xiao Yuehong like this, Xiaohua didn't dare to hide anything. He was also afraid that if he didn't say it now, it would affect Xiao Yuehong's pill refining in the future. At the same time, he also wanted to quickly improve the cultivation of his senior brothers and sisters to deal with the 10,000 Poisons sect. What's wrong, Xiaohua? Xiao Yuehong was stunned and turned to look at Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua hesitating, he smiled and said, It's okay, this Peiyuan pill should be able to refine more than 3 pills. I'll leave the rest to you. Hee, of course if Master's luck is bad and I can only refine 3 pills, then you won't have a share this time. Don't blame me. No, sect leader. Xiaohua was greatly anxious. He repeatedly waved his hand and took out the dozen or so jade bottles from his bosom. He said, Sect Master, Disciple didn't mean it that way. This is of course what you instructed Disciple to do before you left. Disciple was fortunate enough to not disappoint you and found them from a hidden place in Cherishing Flower Peak. Oh, not bad. Xiao Yuehong was very gratified. With a wave of his hand, a jade bottle flew into his hand. He didn't open it and only looked at it in his hand. He said with a smile, Xiaohua, you're quite considerate. Thank you for your hard work. Xiaohua wanted to explain, but he knew that the absorption fruit he took out was much stronger than Xiao Yuehong's. For a moment, he didn't know how to open his mouth. Hee, you little brat, when did you pick this thing? Why didn't you tell us? Zhang Qingxiao scolded with a smile on her face. Second senior apprentice brother. You've misunderstood. Right after I picked it up, I came across 100 Herbs Gates messaging talisman. Right after that, I was attacked by 10,000 Poisons Gates attack formation. During this period of time, how could I remember these things? If not for Sect Master mentioning it, I would have almost forgotten about it. Xiaohua explained. What kind of spirit herb is this? We've all played around Cherishing Flower Peak since we were young. I'm afraid there aren't any good spirit herbs. Zhang Qingxiao smiled and picked up a jade bottle. He was also 27 or 28 years old this year. He had grown up in Songhua Ming since he was young. He was older than 30 years old, so he naturally had seen it before. It's absorption fruit, Xiaohua answered honestly. What? Absorption fruit? Other than Cherishing Flower Peak, Songhua Ming has absorption fruit in other places? Everyone was stunned. Xiao Yuehong and Zhang Qingxiao opened their jade bottles at almost the same time. Ah! The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air, stunned on the spot. What's wrong? Father, Xiao Xianrui said curiously. Second brother, what's going on? Gong Mingwei also asked curiously. Take a look. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand, astonishment flashing through his eyes. Gong Mingwei and Xiao Xianrui seemed to understand something. Suppressing the surprise in their hearts, they each picked up a jade bottle. Sure enough, Although the two of them were prepared, they were still shocked by the 30-year-old absorption fruit. Xiao Hua. Are these all 30-year-old absorption fruits? Xiao Xianrui looked at the dozen jade bottles, her voice trembling. Since she could remember, Song Hua Ming had never seen so many absorption fruits appear at once. Yes, senior sister, they are all absorbing fruits that are more than 30 years old. Xiao Hua once again answered honestly. Where did you pick them? Xiao Yuehong asked with a frown. Xiao Hua told him one of the places Xiao Bai took him to. What? There's a small cave there? I played there when I was young. How could I not find it? Zhang Qingxiao almost jumped up in disbelief. Second senior brother, if you don't believe me, I'll take you to see it. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Why would I go there? Zhang Qingxiao hurriedly waved his hand. I have to squat down to go in. I'm not going. Xiao Yuehong thought for a moment and asked, then besides these absorption fruits, are there any other spiritual herbs? This. Xiao Hua was a bit speechless. He had other spiritual herbs in his space, but he didn't know what Xiao Yuehong wanted. He could only shake his head and say, it seems that besides these absorption fruits, there are no other spiritual herbs. Oh, Xiao Yuehong was a bit regretful, but then he laughed again. Look at me, I was a bit carried away. Xiao Hua had such an opportunity to find so many absorption fruits in a secret place. I should be very satisfied. Why would I be greedy for no reason? Sect Master, what do you mean? Xiao Hua understood that Xiao Yuehong might be thinking about the exquisite grass, so he reminded Xiao Yuehong in advance. It's nothing. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand and said with a smile, Master worked hard and almost lost his life to get these useless absorption fruits. You, on the other hand, just casually searched around the house and you actually got so many. Although it's good, it's a big problem for Master. Yes, Xiao Yuehong's harvest compared to the things Xiao Hua took out really made Xiao Yuehong feel embarrassed. But after hearing this, Xiao Hua felt that something was wrong and asked, why is that? The absorption fruit is the main ingredient in refining the Peiyuan pill, but it also needs to be combined with the absorption fruit. Our Shan Huiming sect doesn't have this kind of grass. If the absorption fruit I picked is not old enough, I can use other spiritual herbs to replace it. Since you've picked more than 10 absorption fruits, then I'll naturally have to use enough aged black tuber grass. Father, E-City just passed. I'm afraid the next time will be half a year later. This black tuber grass is not easy to find. Well, although the black tuber grass is not rare, it's not easy to find one that is old enough. Fortunately, 10 to 20 years old can be used. We can use other spiritual herbs to exchange for it. Who should we exchange with? Xiao Xianrui just frowned and seemed to think of something, her face blushing for no reason. Naturally, we'll go to the 100 Herbs Gate. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand, and the red message talisman appeared in his hand. The 100 Herbs Gate is good at growing spiritual herbs. They naturally have enough black tuber grass. We can definitely exchange these absorption fruits for the black tuber grass. Then he changed the topic. Furthermore, the fact that the 100 Herbs Gate sent me, Shang Huaming, a message in advance shows their sincerity in forming an alliance. Now that I, Shang Huaming, have overcome my difficulties, I should inform the 100 Herbs Gate and give my thanks. I'll do as father says. Xiao Xianrui lowered her head and said in a low voice. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao looked at each other with displeasure. Xiao Hua! Xiao Yuehong shouted. Disciple is here. Go ahead. Although you're not my official disciple, when the leader of the 100 Herb Gate came to visit me, I've already made it clear that I'll take you in as my disciple sooner or later. Therefore, it's not rude for you to come and express your gratitude on my behalf. Also, your two senior brothers and sister still have to maintain the sect-protecting formation, so it's not convenient for them to go out. You've used a flying talisman, so you won't be any slower than them. It's just right for you to go. Hearing this, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Sect Master is right. I'm only a first-level Qi refinement disciple. Even if I encounter the 10,000 Poisons Gate, they won't take me seriously. I'm the most suitable person to go out. Master. Xiao Hua has never been to Yellow Flower Ridge. His cultivation is low. I'm afraid he hasn't seen the dangers of the cultivation world. Zhang Qingxiao said worriedly, We don't need to be in a hurry to improve our cultivation. Let's wait for things to calm down first. Hearing this, Xiao Hua was greatly moved. He smiled and said, "Many thanks, second senior martial brother." However, little brother has always been a genius at escaping. Even a 10th level chi refining cultivator wouldn't be able to catch up to little brother. So how could a foundation establishment senior make things difficult for little brother? Besides, second senior brother also saw the 10,000 poisons gates attack. I'm afraid it won't end well. It's better to improve our Xianxia strength as soon as possible. Besides, I'm counting on this Peiyuan pill to break through to the first level of chi refinement. If second senior brother doesn't let me go out, I'll be anxious. Gong Mingwei stared at Xiao Hua for a while, then walked forward and patted him on the shoulder. Go. You'll have to go down the mountain sooner or later. Just treat this as an experience. Remember, if you can't beat them, run. You're only at the first level of chi refinement, so no matter how you run, it won't be too much. Xiao Xianrui also nodded at Xiao Hua and said, "Go early and come back early." "Thank you, senior sister," Xiao Hua said with a smile. After the three of them finished talking, Xiao Yuehong took out a stack of flying talismans and some other yellow talismans from his storage bag and handed them over. He said, "Your cultivation is low, so you can only use these yellow talismans. On the way you just need to fly. It's best if you don't use the other yellow talismans, especially the cultivators from other sections. If you don't provoke them and avoid them, there shouldn't be any problems." Disciple understands. Xiao Hua put away the yellow talismans and cupped his hands. Then, disciple will go to the 100 Herbs Gate now? And go now. Xiao Yuehong nodded and poured a strand of transcendence energy into the summoning talisman of the 100 Herbs Gate. The summoning talisman flew up with a whoosh and turned into a crimson light that flew out of Shang Huaming's formation. Master has already told you in the summoning talisman that you're going. You only need to go to the 100 Herbs Gate. Sect leader Jiang of the 100 Herbs Gate has already seen you, so you don't need any keepsake. Xiao Yuehong said. Then he told Xiao Hua the location of the 100 Herbs Gate and sent him out of Shang Huaming's formation. Chapter 1244. 100 Herbs Gate's Yao Nong Peak was indeed very far from Shang Huaming's Yellow Flower Ridge. It was more than 3,000 miles away. Xiao Hua's round trip would probably take 3 or 4 days. Leaving the protection of Shang Huaming's great formation and relying on his own strength to gain experience in the Dawn Rain continent for 4 days, this was a kind of test for Xiao Hua. However, this was also Xiao Yuehong's last resort. If it was a normal day, Xiao Yuehong would definitely go personally for such an important matter. At the very least, he would let Xiao Xianrui represent him. But now, Xiao Yuehong was injured and the 10,000 Poison sect was coveting him outside. He could only rely on Shang Huaming's great formation to deal with them. Xiao Xianrui and the other two were only in the 10th layer of the Qi refining realm. In front of the 10,000 Poison sect's foundation establishment protectors, they were like babies. If he considered the urgency of the matter, he could only let Xiao Hua take the risk. In fact, the most important thing was that Xiao Yuehong and the others knew that although Xiao Hua's cultivation was low, after using the flying talisman, his speed was a bit faster than Xiao Xianrui and the others. Instead of letting Xiao Xianrui and the others go, it was better to let Xiao Hua go. In particular, the flying speed was disproportionate to the cultivation level, which was very contrary to common sense. This kind of unexpected trump card would of course have an unexpected effect. Moreover, although the distance from Shang Huaming to the 100 Herbs Gate was quite far, it was a flat road all the way. There were no deep mountains or treacherous rivers, no powerful demonic beasts, and no big sections. Xiao Hua was just a mediocre cultivation disciple, so he didn't attract much attention. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Yuehong didn't even give him a storage pouch. He only let him put everything in his bosom to avoid attracting the greed of others. Xiao Yuehong carefully opened Shang Huaming's great formation and flew out with Xiao Hua. Looking at Xiao Hua's back that was indeed faster than Gong Mingwei and the others, he couldn't help but think. Father. Xiao Xianrui was a bit worried. Letting Xiao Hua go out like this. Aren't we too busy? After all, he's only 18 years old and has just reached the first layer of the Qi refining realm. Xiao Rui. Can you fly as fast as Xiao Hua? If you and Xiao Hua met a 12th layer qi refining expert at the same time, do you think they would let you or Xiao Hua go? Xiao Yuehong asked calmly. This. Xiao Xianrui was a bit speechless. Don't ask so many questions. Junior sister, what master said makes sense. Xiao Hua's cultivation is so shallow, as long as you don't provoke him, others definitely won't lower themselves to his level. Zhang Qingxiao laughed. That's not necessarily true. Xiao Xianrui retorted. There are too many unreasonable people in Yi City. Who knows what kind of people Xiao Hua will meet? Xiao Hua is a lucky person. Maybe he won't encounter anything along the way. Gong Mingwei also agreed with Xiao Yuehong's opinion. That's right. He was able to find the absorption fruit in such a secretive place. His luck isn't something an ordinary person can compare to. Zhang Qingxiao really couldn't imagine that the place where she had played since she was a child actually hid such a good thing. Second brother, go take a look right now. The place Xiao Hua spoke of. Does it have? Xiao Yuehong interrupted them and instructed. There was no need for that. Master. Xiao Hua has already picked it. Why should I go? Zhang Qingxiao said with a sad face. Go now. Xiao Yuehong's expression suddenly changed. Yes, master. Seeing Xiao Yuehong get angry for a long time, Zhang Qingxiao shrunk her neck and quickly flew away. Seeing this, Xiao Xianrui rolled her eyes and whispered, Father, you don't think? Xiao Yuehong glanced at him, sighed, and no longer spoke. Not long after, Zhang Qingxiao resentfully returned and reported, Master, the place Xiao Hua spoke of has been found. There is a small trace of being picked and it looks very fresh. Xiao Yuehong frowned. There is no absorption grass. No, master. There is not a single grass on the ground. It was all taken by Xiao Hua. Oh, that's right. Xiao Hua hasn't learned how to pick spiritual grass. Xiao Yuehong nodded slightly. Father Xiao Hua. There should be no doubt. Xiao Xianrui laughed. If there is something wrong with him, why would he give such a good absorption fruit to us for no reason? Moreover, he gave out more than 10 of them at once. If these things were put on the market, they would be extremely popular goods. Father has no intention of suspecting Xiao Hua. Xiao Yuehong smiled bitterly. It's just, most of the 30-year-old absorption fruits are protected by spiritual beasts. Wasn't Father injured by a spiritual beast this time? And Xiao Hua actually took out so many absorption fruits at once, and the quality is so good, I feel that there is something fishy. Master, it doesn't matter if it's strange or not. Even if there's something fishy going on, Xiao Hua is our Shang Huaming's disciple. He can bring me, Shang Huaming, so why do you care so much about him? Gong Mingwei also laughed. I think that the more spiritual grass he finds, the better. Even if he finds a 300-year-old exquisite grass, won't the one who benefits in the end still be me, Shang Huaming? Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. Xiao Yuehong also felt that it was reasonable. He waved his hand and said, You, guard the array. Master will prepare to refine pills. When Xiao Hua comes back with the black tusk grass, Master will start refining pills. Xiao Hua's dozen absorption fruits should be enough to refine dozens of Peiyuan pill. If you are lucky, I'm afraid you can directly advance to the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. Gong Mingwei and the other two were overjoyed when they heard this. Zhang Qingxiao bared her teeth and said, How many pills does Xiao Hua need to advance to the 2nd layer of the Qi refining realm? Xiao Yuehong's face showed a strange expression. He also shrugged and curled his lips. This child, who knows? Xiao Hua didn't expect that taking out so many absorption fruits at once would arouse Xiao Yuehong's suspicion. He also didn't expect Xiao Yuehong to really let Zhang Qingxiao go to the small cave. At this time, he just left Yellow Flower Ridge. According to Xiao Yuehong's instructions, he didn't fly away in a hurry. Instead, he landed on a mountain ridge not far from Yellow Flower Ridge, sat cross-legged, and waited for a while. After about a cup of tea's time, he didn't see anything unusual. He stood up and looked around, thinking, if there were disciples of the 10,000 Poison sect, wouldn't they have come out by now? Since they didn't come to find trouble with me, they probably didn't put me in their eyes. Or maybe they aren't around here. Then, Xiaohua roughly looked at all the things. In addition to some flying talismans, Xiao Yuehong gave him a few fireball talismans, icicle talismans, defensive talismans, and even an extremely rare concealing talisman. These were all life-saving things for Xiaohua. In addition, there were 3 jade bottles that Xiao Yuehong brought back. Inside were 20-years-old absorption fruits. Xiaohua tidied them up a bit and put them into the space in his mind. Although it wouldn't attract attention if he put them in his bosom, they weren't as hidden as in the space after all. After tidying up, Xiaohua's figure flew up. He didn't directly fly to Yao Nong Peak. Instead, he turned a corner and flew towards a flat land with gentle terrain. Because according to Xiao Yuehong's estimation, if he flew directly, he would first have to pass through a desolate plateau. Although there weren't any powerful demon beasts there, Xiaohua's cultivation was really low. Even if he encountered some ordinary demon beasts, their strength would be at the 3rd or 4th layer of the Qi refining realm, far from what Xiaohua could deal with. At that time, instead of being chased by demon beasts, it would be better to directly take a detour. Moreover, in a place where there were few people, if he encountered other cultivators, well, as long as he encountered cultivators, their strength would be higher than Xiaohua's. If they were to harm Xiaohua, wouldn't there be no one to call for help in the surroundings? And in a flat land, admittedly, the chances of encountering other cultivators were high, but there would also be a lot of people. No one would throw away their own face and go bully a little cultivator at the 1st layer of the Qi refining realm. Especially when this little cultivator didn't even have a storage pouch. At first glance, it was clear that he didn't have much to gain. This kind of thing was easy to do, but when others talked about it, it would be unpleasant to hear. Sure enough, Xiao Yuehong's strategy was effective. When Xiaohua saw some people, he immediately reduced his flying speed and maintained the speed of a cultivator at the 1st or 2nd layer of the Qi refining realm. In a row, he encountered several groups of cultivators around the 7th layer of the Qi refining realm. They all swept their gazes over Xiaohua, and then lost interest in looking at him. Xiaohua's face was especially careful. As soon as he bumped into them, he lowered his altitude and gave way to them from a distance. His attitude was truly respectful, which made them feel very comfortable in their hearts. Everyone was once a low-level disciple, so they understood that this disciple was definitely following his master's orders to go out on a mission. Their hearts spontaneously sprouted with pity. A few of them even smiled and nodded at Xiaohua. It seems, it's not as fierce and frightening as the sect head and senior sister said. Xiaohua unconsciously relaxed a little. After a few hours, the sky gradually darkened, and they had already reached the end of the plain. Not far away, there was a dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Xiaohua was just about to find a place to stop and look at the direction when suddenly, his heart stirred. He turned his head and saw a figure rapidly approaching from 100 zhang behind him. From the looks of it, that figure was rushing towards him. That brat you! The person in the distance seemed to have seen Xiaohua turn his head and shouted from afar. Although the distance was about 100 zhang, that person's voice seemed to be right next to his ear. Xiaohua slightly frowned. That person's flying speed wasn't faster than his own when he was flying at full speed. His cultivation should be around the 9th layer of the Qi refining realm. Xiaohua might be able to fly faster than him, but the forest was right in front of him. Xiaohua still hadn't thought of a way to enter it. If he hastily fled, he was afraid there would be danger inside. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua stopped and turned around to respectfully wait. When that person came closer, Xiaohua could already clearly see that he was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. He wore a somewhat shabby Taoist robe and held a long sword in his hand. This, senior martial brother, do you have any instructions? Xiaohua bowed and asked. Senior martial brother? That person flew to Xiaohua's side and looked him up and down. He sneered and said, You're just a mediocre cultivator. What qualifications do you have to call me senior martial brother? Xiaohua slapped his forehead with an ashamed expression and said with a smile, It's all this disciple's negligence. This is the first time disciple has come out to do something. I'm not familiar with etiquette and have neglected senior. May I ask, senior, why did you call disciple, for? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1245. Seeing Xiao Hua call him senior, that person's expression relaxed a little. He nodded slightly and said, "It's good that you know. You're just a first-layer aura refining brat. You have to call everyone senior when you see them, not just I. Many thanks for senior's teachings. Disciple understands." Xiao Hua bowed again and said with a smile, Okay. Which sect are you from? Where are you going?" That person's question was really rude, but Xiao Hua was helpless. He could only say according to the words he'd thought of before, "Disciple is Shang Huaming, an apprentice disciple who hasn't been accepted into the sect yet. This time, I'm going to Medicine Gnome Peak on the orders of the sect master to seek an audience with 100 Herbs Gate's Gate Master Jiang. As for why, I ask senior to forgive me. I can't reveal it." Shang Huaming? 100 Herbs Gate? Hearing this, that person's eyes showed disdain and he snorted, "What else can it be? I'm just going to ask for a medicinal pill." Senior, how do you know?" Xiao Hua was shocked. What can I know?" That person curled his lips. "You're just an insignificant apprentice disciple, yet you were sent out. It can be seen that Shang Huaming's disciples can't come out easily. If they're not injured, then your Shang Huaming underworld sect is in trouble. And going to 100 Herbs Gate. Besides asking for the cleansing pill, what else can you ask for?" "Cleansing pill?" Xiao Hua muttered in his heart, but he immediately put on a worshipful expression. "Senior is really brilliant. Even the name of the medicinal pill isn't wrong." "What's wrong with that? A sect like 100 Herbs Gate is only famous for the cleansing pill. If you're asking for some Peiyuan pill or marrow cleansing pill, you should go to 10,000 Flowers Valley. Besides, going to 10,000 Flowers Valley, I'm afraid you can't do it." That person sneered. 10,000 Flowers Valley? Marrow cleansing pill? Hearing this, Xiao Hua's interest was greatly aroused. He bowed again and said, "Senior is really amazing. You're really right. You must be a famous cultivator on our Dawn Rain continent. What's your name?" I am." That person was about to say something, but the word stopped at the tip of his tongue. He narrowed his eyes and flew forward half a foot. He smiled and said, "We've just met by chance, so why ask for my name?" "Oh, since senior is unwilling to bestow a name, then junior asks for senior's forgiveness. The Medicine Farmer Peak is still far from here. I'm afraid junior will have to travel through the night." Xiao Hua's heart trembled. His body also flew back by a foot, and he hurriedly said, "Leave." Sure, but leave the thing in your arms behind." The man finally revealed his ferocious expression. "Something in my bosom?" Xiao Hua was stunned and said anxiously, "Senior has misunderstood. Junior doesn't have anything in his bosom. There are only a few flight talismans. If senior takes these flight talismans, I'm afraid I won't be able to fly to Medicine Farmer Peak." "Who are you trying to fool?" That person patted his waist and took out a yellow talisman from his storage bag. He sneered, "You went to 100 Herbs Gate to ask for the cleansing pill. Didn't you give them spirit stones and spirit herbs? You don't have a storage bag. Where else can you put it if not in your bosom?" AI, sect master and senior martial sister are still too optimistic. They probably didn't expect. "Oh no, it's still my fault. I can't say the reason why I asked for the medicine." Xiao Hua's face was full of regret. "Senior, I really don't have anything in my bosom." Xiao Hua hurriedly flew back a bit, took out several flying talismans from his bosom, and opened up his clothes to let that person take a look. He said, "Junior only knows that Sect Head has already used a summoning talisman to tell Sect Head Jiang that Junior doesn't need to bring anything." That person stared blankly. Thinking about it, it made sense. However, he still asked, "Then, do you dare to let me search your body?" Xiao Hua thought for a moment, raised his hand, and said with a bitter smile, "If senior doesn't believe me, then come and search me." Although he said that, Xiao Hua's heart was still nervous. That person's cultivation was at the 9th layer of qi refining. In front of him, he didn't have any power to fight back. If he was a bit further away, he could still escape. If he was approached, wouldn't he be at the mercy of others? In his heart, he still didn't want that person to search his body. "Oh, so it's like that." Seeing that Xiao Hua agreed, that person didn't haggle. He waved his hand and said, "Since it's like that, Then forget it. How can I lower myself to the level of a junior like you? When Xiaohua heard this, his face relaxed. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the yellow talisman in that person's hand shoot out like lightning, hitting the defenseless Xiaohua. Suddenly, a huge force bound Xiaohua, making him unable to move. Hee, I was almost fooled by you. That person sneered. You want to deceive I with this little trick? You. Xiaohua could still speak, but he stared at that person with extreme anger. He really didn't expect that this 9th-layer qi refining expert would use such a despicable method to deal with him. Let this poor Taoist take a look. That person said as he flew closer. Xiaohua was very anxious. He used all the strength in his body to struggle free from that huge force. Fellow Taoist Chong, what are you doing? A gentle voice came from afar. Who? That person was stunned. He retreated half a zhang, then turned around to look. Xiaohua was even more stunned than this fellow Taoist Chong. However, he wasn't surprised that someone came, but rather, when fellow Taoist Chong approached him, he used all his strength to try to break free from that huge binding force. That huge force actually felt like it was about to fall apart when he used 50% of his strength. What's going on? Can my strength break this yellow talisman? This sudden feeling caused Xiaohua to be greatly shocked. He had never thought that his strength could be used in such a way. But immediately after, a shout came from afar, causing Xiaohua to immediately withdraw his strength. This was because when he looked up, he saw a young Taoist around 24 or 25 years old wearing a navy blue Taoist robe flying over. That person's flying speed was much faster than his own. Even if he broke free from the yellow talisman's binding, he still wouldn't be able to fly past this person. It was better to just wait and see. Oh, so it's fellow Taoist Li. Fellow Taoist Chang's face reddened, and he appeared slightly embarrassed. He flew forward and cupped his hands with a smile. Fellow Taoist Li's flying speed was very fast. In a moment, he had already arrived in front of him. He glanced at the nearby Xiaohua. Xiaohua seemed to feel something pass over his body. Is this divine sense? Xiaohua's heart trembled. He had heard Suan Pei say that only cultivators at the 12th level of qi refining could produce divine sense, and divine sense was also the basic condition for entering foundation establishment. This fellow Taoist Li is actually at the peak of the late stage of qi refining. No wonder that fellow Taoist Chong is so respectful. Xiaohua sneered in his heart. But I don't know what this senior Su sees in me. Fellow Taoist Chong, are you playing with a child? Fellow Taoist Li used his divine sense to sweep over Xiaohua, then no longer paid him any attention. He turned his head and asked with a smile. Fellow Taoist Li, you're right. I was just passing by and really felt bored. When I saw this kid, I was just joking with him. Fellow Taoist Chong said resentfully. However, I just remembered. The medicinal pills in the Immortal's cave are going to be refined today. Even if fellow Taoist Li didn't come, I wouldn't have the time to take care of this little guy. Yes, fellow Taoist Chong should go back early. This child only has a few flying talismans on him and doesn't even have a single medicinal pill. If fellow Taoist Chong tarries here, I'm afraid the medicinal pills in the Immortal's cave will be destroyed. The gains don't make up for the losses. Fellow Taoist Li said unhurriedly. Exactly, I'll hurry back right away. Fellow Taoist Chong bowed and formed hand seals. His figure rapidly flew in another direction, unexpectedly not even sparing a glance at Xiaohua. Once fellow Taoist Chong flew far away, fellow Taoist Li flew to Xiaohua's side. Looking at the confinement talismans on his body, he sneered and said, Humph, you've already used the confinement talisman, still joking around. Soon after he swept a glance at Xiaohua and said coldly, What sect are you from? You're only at the 1st level of qi refining, yet you actually dare to use a flying talisman to move around? You don't want to live anymore. Xiaohua knew that this person was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. With a smile on his face he respectfully said, This one is. Soon after, he repeated what he said to fellow Taoist Chong. Yes, these words. In the future, don't say them again, especially where you're going and what you're doing. If you ask for medicine like this, anyone would think that you have precious spiritual herbs in your bosom. If I hadn't used my divine sense to scan your bosom and found out that you had nothing in your bosom, perhaps I would have also made a move. Fellow Taoist Li shouted with a cold face. Afterwards, fellow Taoist Li patted his waist and took out a yellow talisman. However, just as he was about to activate it with his magic power, he stopped and put away the yellow talisman again. He said to Xiao Hua, "It's not easy to break this confinement talisman, and I'll have to waste one of my yellow talismans. In any case, the confinement time is only 4 hours. Although I'm not going in the direction of Medicinal Plant Peak, I can still take you along. After 4 hours, the confinement talisman will be broken and you can go by yourself." After saying that, he didn't wait for Xiao Hua's reply and tossed out his hand. It was a magic tool that looked like a door plank. That magic tool grew as soon as the wind blew and was more than 1 zhang tall. Fellow Taoist Li stepped on top of it and waved his hand. Xiao Hua felt a strong force wrap around him and pulled him onto the magic tool. Afterwards, that magic tool soared into the sky and flew towards the deep forest ahead. Xiao Hua stood on top of the magic tool that looked like a door plank and respectfully said, "Many thanks to Senior for saving me this time. This junior will never forget it. Senior, please bestow me a name. In the future, if there are any fated chances, this junior will definitely repay you." Li Daoyu gave him a cold glance, then snorted coldly from his nose and ignored him. Seeing that the other party disdained to speak to him, Xiao Hua was also helpless and could only stand to the side silently. Although fellow Taoist Li's door plank couldn't compare to Xiao Yuehong's flying boat, it still had a faint light cover covering Xiao Hua inside. Flying in the night sky, there was no biting cold wind. The two of them didn't say anything. The night sky gradually darkened and the mountain forest below their feet, which looked like night beasts, was also silent. Strange. Although there aren't any Foundation establishment demonic beasts in this Royal Imitation Mountain range, there are still plenty of ordinary wild beasts. Today, why are they all sleeping early? Fellow Taoist Li seemed to frequently pass through this Royal Imitation Mountain range and casually said this. After hearing fellow Taoist Li's words, Xiao Hua also felt that it was a bit strange. Although Cherishing Flower Peak was within Shang Huaming's Great Formation, there were still the sounds of insects and birds at night. It was much more lively than here. Chapter 1246. Just as Xiao Hua was looking under the door, a weak green light shot out from the forest far away, heading straight to the west. Under the night sky, the green light was very conspicuous. Li Daoyu couldn't help but stare blankly at it. "I have something to do at the last minute. I'm afraid I can't follow you for 4 hours." Li Daoyu pressed on the door panel and lowered it slightly. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Hua's body lightly landed on a high slope in the forest. There's still less than an hour before the confinement talisman loses its effect. This place is quite peaceful, so there shouldn't be any danger. You're on your own now. After Li Daoyu finished speaking, he didn't wait for Xiao Hua to speak. He pushed the door and chased after the green light. "Senior!" Xiao Hua shouted. Li Daoyu's figure had long disappeared, so how could he hear him? "Senior, you're really something." Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. "You're obviously warm-hearted, but you're also extremely cold to people. Could it be you don't care about my gratitude?" Come to think of it, he was only a disciple of the first layer of the Aura Refining Realm, while this man was a senior of the 12th layer of the Aura Refining Realm. Perhaps when the time came, he would be able to step into the Foundation Establishment Realm and become a Grandmaster. How could he possibly care about his verbal gratitude? Forget it. If there's a chance in the future, I'll repay him. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and looked around. It was already late at night. Xiao Hua was in an open space in the forest. This open space was quite high, so it should be a high hill. There was also quite a bit of distance between him and the surrounding trees. Li Daoyu was right. He estimated that there shouldn't be any danger for less than an hour. However, Xiao Hua looked left and right, then took a deep breath. He raised his arm slightly and pressed it against the confinement talisman. Then, using 50% of his strength, the light that was confining Xiao Hua shook slightly under Xiao Hua's great strength, as if it was about to collapse. Xiao Hua used another 10% of his strength, and the talisman in the light moved slightly. Soon after, it lost its original order. With a paw sound, a weak light flashed and was annihilated. The confinement talisman was actually broken by 60% of Xiao Hua's strength. Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He almost did a few somersaults in the air. He never thought that he could actually break a confinement talisman with the strength he normally used to do chores. Since I can break this confinement talisman, then, what about other confinement talismans? Xiao Hua's eyes suddenly. He thought of another possibility. However, although he thought a lot, it was all just a hypothesis. He didn't have any chance to put it into practice. Seeing that it was still early, Xiao Hua sat down cross-legged. He silently circulated Death Hua Ming's cultivation method and closed his eyes to cultivate. The moment Xiao Hua closed his eyes, the cube-shaped light source in his mind space also stopped rotating. A kind of strange fluctuation swelled up. The night sky's boundless strange starlight was projected onto his body through the void. The night passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, bursts of birdsong could be heard. Xiao Hua opened his eyes. His mouth and nose were filled with the earthy fragrance of the deep forest early in the morning. Before his eyes, there were also traces of light fog covering the nearby deep forest. It seemed to have a kind of mysterious aura. Xiao Hua stood up and stretched his waist. Just as he was about to fly, he suddenly discovered that he seemed to be lost. Last night, fellow Taoist Li casually threw him down and didn't point him in a direction. If Xiao Hua kept flying forward, he could find Medicinal Farmer Peak. But now that he stopped, where would he go to look? It seems that I still have to find someone to ask. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. But this was the deep forest, a place that Xiao Hua was afraid of. How could he find someone to ask? Thinking this, Xiao Hua took out a flight talisman. Just as he was about to cast a spell, he suddenly felt alarmed. Just as he was about to raise his eyes and look in a certain direction, he saw a light cyan brilliance quickly streaking across not far from his eyes. Within that brilliance was a girl in her 20s. She was making hand seals and hurriedly flying through the air. Seeing the girl's anxious expression and looking back from time to time, it seemed that someone was closely chasing after her. And when the girl turned her head, she saw Xiao Hua standing on a high hill. She immediately revealed a happy expression. She made hand seals and changed her direction, flying straight towards Xiao Hua. Seeing someone appear, she was also happy. She could at least ask for directions. However, when he saw the girl's panicked expression and when she saw him, her face revealed even more joy than his own. Xiao Hua had long complained in his heart. Wasn't this gaze the same as his last night? In this kind of situation, how could he not know what he had encountered? If he had the capital to be chivalrous, he would naturally be happy to help others. However, he was only a first-layer qi refining cultivator. He hadn't even crossed the threshold. How could he have the power to protect himself? How could he help others? Besides, Xiao Hua had just been schemed against by that fellow Taoist Chong yesterday and almost fell into his evil hands. He had already experienced the ruthlessness of the cultivation world. If he made the slightest mistake, he would become a ghost under the hands of others. Seeing that girl lead the disaster to him, how could he not be nervous? That girl's speed was very fast. Just as Xiao Hua revealed a nervous expression and retreated half a step, she had already arrived within 10 feet of him. At this time, Xiao Hua also clearly saw the appearance of the person who came. He saw that this girl looked very ordinary. She had big eyes, thin eyebrows, and her skin was slightly dark. She looked just like a village girl. When the girl saw Xiao Hua's expression, she was also slightly taken aback. Looking carefully, she saw that Xiao Hua's cultivation was only at the first layer of the qi refining realm. Her expression greatly changed. Just as she was about to turn around, she heard several arrogant voices behind her. Over here! This girl actually has a helper. Be careful. That's not right. What are you afraid of? It's just a brat who just started qi refining. This brat who came to help might also have something good in his hands. Following the shouts, several rays of brilliance of various colors came from the distance. For cultivators in different attire also followed behind. They formed an encirclement and rushed that girl towards Xiao Hua. It was already too late for that girl to change direction again. Unless she flew over Xiao Hua's head, she could only go around from the side. Seeing that her forehead was dripping with sweat and her complexion was pale, It was obvious that her magic power was already exhausted. After thinking for a moment, the girl slightly flew to the side and landed. She patted her waist and a small sword-shaped yellow talisman appeared in her hand. Her face was tense as she coldly looked at the direction of the people who came. Ha! You guys actually aren't together? Seeing that the girl wasn't together with Xianxia, a 30-something-year-old male cultivator in the lead couldn't help but be startled. He looked at the three people who also stopped not far away and said, "That's right, this person. But he has nothing to do with me. We only met by chance." The girl turned her head and saw that Xianxia was still foolishly standing there and watching. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She glared at him, seemingly hinting that he should hurry and escape. Then, she turned her head and said, "Besides, isn't he just a brat in the first layer of chi refining? How can he be my helper?" Seeing that the girl was glaring at him, Xianxia couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. How could he not want to fly away as soon as possible? Just as the four people surrounded that girl and rushed towards him, he had already taken out his flying talisman. However, just as he was about to use his magic power to activate it, he sensed something in his heart. He felt that behind him, the only place he could escape to, there was also a dangerous aura approaching. Although he couldn't say where this feeling came from, he still chose to believe it. Moreover, based on their flying speed, he could already see that these people were all around the 5th layer of chi refining. Although their magic power was stronger than his, their flying speed shouldn't be able to catch up to him. He only had to wait for the person behind him to reveal himself and make these people lose their vigilance towards him. Then he could find a chance to fly away from them. As for the girl who came out, alas, she was a senior in the 5th layer of chi refining. She was far from being comparable to Xianxia. Hee, that's strange. Didn't you run all the way here to find a helper? Since you saw him, why didn't you go up and ask for help? Seeing that the girl had no way out, the middle-aged man had some confidence and said with a smile. The girl took a deep breath, seemingly wanting to seize the time to regulate her breathing. She said with a smile, "If it was someone with a high cultivation level, I would naturally ask for help. But this kind of cultivation level, I don't want to drag people down with me." Good. Not far from the middle-aged cultivator, another cultivator with a ruddy complexion and wearing Taoist robes clapped his hands and said, "Such elegant conduct, I haven't asked for your name." Presumably, you're also a descendant of a famous sect, right? Hee, how could I be a descendant of a famous sect? If I were, would I still be chased by you guys? The girl replied with a sneer. At this moment, the other two people weren't young either. Taking advantage of the time when the three people were talking, they flew for a while and surrounded Xianxia and the girl. "You brat. Why didn't you leave?" While the girl was talking to the two cultivators, she was also paying attention to the others. At this moment, her magic power hadn't recovered yet, so she couldn't fly away in time. However, when she saw that Xianxia didn't fly away despite being surrounded by the other two cultivators, she couldn't help but feel anxious and couldn't help but ask, Xianxia smiled bitterly. He wanted to leave, but how could he leave? The corner of his mouth quietly curled up. Obviously, the girl didn't understand Xianxia's meaning. Seeing Xianxia's bitter smile, she knew that Xianxia had difficulties in his heart. She could only say apologetically, "Don't blame this little girl for bringing disaster here." When this little girl saw that there was actually someone in the wilderness, she thought it was some kind of expert. Alas, forget it. As she spoke, she turned her head and said to the middle-aged cultivator, "Brother Tai." Hee, miss, there's no need to say anything. If this person was an ordinary person, we naturally wouldn't pay attention to him. However, although his cultivation level is low, he's still a cultivator after all. If you want us to spare his life, it'd be better to first consider handing over the thing you obtained last night. You. Hearing that the middle-aged cultivator didn't say to first let Xianxia go and instead mention the thing from last night, the girl knew that the situation was bad. Thinking that the other party had the intention to kill Xianxia, she coldly said, "This girl can't even protect herself, how could I have the time to care about other people? It's just that because I rashly pulled him into this, I feel guilty in my heart." Chapter 1248. In addition, I only found that thing half a step ahead of you, and There were already people chasing after that thing before me. I really didn't get any benefits. I've already explained it clearly. Why don't you believe me? The girl said angrily. Miss, your words really can't be trusted. The cultivator dressed like a Taoist smiled and said, This is the Feimeng mountain range. There are no demon beasts or spiritual herbs here. Who would come here? We just didn't have time to go elsewhere. Plus, we just walked around on a whim and found it. How could there be other people as bored as us? It's because your cultivation isn't high enough that you don't dare to go elsewhere. The girl sneered. You only know how to bully a weak girl like me in the wilderness. Haha, miss, you're right. Isn't the law of the jungle the golden rule of the cultivation world? If you're afraid of this, hurry up and hand over the thing. We're in a good mood and let you go. Go home with that pretty boy behind you and give birth to a fat boy. Let him come back to the cultivation world. Ha ha ha. The four people all laughed. Give me your life. The girl was so angry that her face turned red. She threw the small sword-shaped yellow paper in her hand into the air. A faint brilliance flashed and the yellow paper turned into a flying sword. With a whoosh, it pierced toward the middle-aged cultivator in front of her like lightning. The middle-aged cultivator had already landed on the ground. When he saw the yellow paper talisman in the girl's hand, he had already taken out his own yellow paper talisman. Seeing the flying sword piercing toward him, he wasn't nervous. He threw the yellow paper talisman in his hand and it burned on its own. A yellow brilliance flashed and a light shield like a golden bell covered him. Golden bell talisman? The girl sighed. She formed a seal with her hand and pointed at another person. The Taoist was even more arrogant. He threw a yellow talisman at the wind and it stuck to his body. In an instant, the Taoist's body seemed to swell up. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. He raised his fist and smashed it at the sword light. Powerful Vajra talisman? The girl smiled bitterly in her heart. She pointed with her hand, and the flying sword suddenly expanded by 30%. Then, it went straight for the Taoist priest's fist. With a loud bang, the Taoist priest's fist collided with the small sword. With a burst of brilliant light, the small sword was sent flying. Then, it slowly shrank and turned back into a piece of yellow paper. With a light pop, the yellow paper was burned and turned into ashes in an instant. The Taoist gritted his teeth and his body gradually shrank back to its original size. His face was also a little red. Seeing that the flying sword was ineffective, the girl's expression changed slightly. She patted a small storage pouch on her waist and took out a few yellow talismans. She looked like she was in pain. She picked one out and muttered something. Then she pointed her finger and a large fireball appeared out of thin air and flew toward the girl. Immediately after, another flying sword talisman appeared in his hand and flew towards the middle-aged cultivator closest to him. The middle-aged cultivator sneered. His golden bell talisman hadn't lost its effect yet, so the flying sword couldn't do anything. The girl seemed to only want to attract the middle-aged cultivator's attention. After the flying sword talisman was sent out, she used her magic power to ignite another yellow talisman. Then, she flew up and charged toward the Taoist priest along with the fireball. The Taoist priest still hadn't calmed down. When he saw the fireball flying over, he couldn't help but feel anxious. He patted his storage pouch and took out a yellow talisman. He waved it in the wind and a mist of water spread out toward the fireball. With a pop, water vapor rose and the fireball and the mist of water both disappeared. At the same time, the small sword pierced the middle-aged cultivator's light barrier and messed it up. But something strange happened. Just as the middle-aged cultivator's light barrier dissipated, a pale yellow brilliance suddenly rose from behind the flying sword and enveloped the middle-aged cultivator's body. The middle-aged cultivator was anxious. Without thinking, he immediately patted his waist. A brilliance flashed and a similar golden bell talisman covered his body. At the same time, the brilliance behind the flying sword also attacked. Strangely, that brilliance was exactly the same as the middle-aged cultivator's golden bell talisman. It actually hit the outside of the middle-aged cultivator's golden bell. Just as the middle-aged cultivator was bewildered, he saw the girl's face flash with a proud smile. She turned around and flew in front of the middle-aged cultivator. When the middle-aged cultivator wanted to use his flying talisman to chase after her, he found that he couldn't move at all. The Taoist priest had just taken out his flying talisman and didn't have time to fly. As for the other two, they were behind the girl, and Xiao Hua was between them. They simply couldn't catch up. Everyone present was dumbstruck. Xiao Hua was even more flabbergasted. This was the first time he saw this kind of yellow talisman being used in such a strange way. And the girl's method was also wonderful. She actually shook all four of them. There was no need to mention Xiao Hua. The middle-aged cultivator struggled several times but didn't succeed. He could only look on helplessly as the girl flew past him. She flew further and further away, and the Taoist priest flew after her. Seeing that he couldn't catch up, he stopped and walked in front of the middle-aged cultivator, wanting to help him out. Xiao Hua saw the girl fly away in the direction he felt the dangerous aura from. His face unconsciously became gloomy and uncertain. He didn't use the flying talisman in his hand, hesitating whether or not he should take advantage of this opportunity to escape. The two people in front of him slightly hesitated. One flew up and the other walked to Xiao Hua's side. Just as Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and prepared to risk his life to fly away, a figure appeared in the air. It was the girl who had just escaped. With a bit of fear on her face, she flew back. Ha ha ha, the middle-aged cultivator laughed heartily. Girl, you have good methods. If we didn't have a backup plan, wouldn't you have escaped? Sure enough, behind that girl, there were two people who formed a triangle and forced her back. At this time, the girl seemed to somewhat understand why Xiao Hua had curled his lips at her back just now. These two cultivators were still middle-aged, but they were different from the previous four. These two people were dressed in secular clothing and looked almost the same. Even the vulgar and greedy light in their eyes were the same. They forced the girl back to her original position, even to Xiao Hua's side. The two people chuckled coldly at the same time. See? You guys still let her escape in the end. If it weren't for us two brothers, you guys would have been like drawing water with a bamboo basket. How about it? Do we still have to discuss how to split the profits? Humph. When the middle-aged cultivator finished laughing, his face showed disdain. However, it seemed that the six people had already discussed beforehand, so he had no choice but to agree. Seeing that everyone didn't agree, the two people rubbed their hands at the same time. They looked at the girl's face and said, Girl, looking at your appearance, I'm afraid you're not a virgin, right? I don't know if you've heard of us brothers? The girl was disdainful at first, but then she thought of something. The expression on her face changed rapidly, and even her body trembled slightly. Her eyes hurriedly searched left and right for an opportunity to escape. Ha ha ha, don't look for it. Hurry up and hand over the thing from last night, and then, Teseste, join us brothers in studying the joyful Zen. The girl gnashed her teeth. Pai Lan and Xiong, you guys actually ran here? Hee hee, girl, what's so strange about this? We brothers are only here to gain experience. Why can't we come? Said one arrogantly. Why are you wasting your breath on her? Said the other impatiently. Kill first and then rape. We don't have to worry about not finding that thing. As soon as this person said this, his eyes revealed a dazed look. The person beside him became even more interested. His left hand snapped his fingers and laughed. If you don't behave, there's no harm in killing first and then raping later. The girl's whole body shivered. She clenched her teeth, and a trace of desperation appeared in her eyes. At this moment, she was quite close to Xiao Hua, almost as close as him. Admittedly, she didn't look at Xiao Hua, seemingly not wanting to implicate him. However, Xiao Hua saw the person behind him and knew that he couldn't escape either. He couldn't help but pay attention. Hearing Pai Lan and Xiong's obscenities, he was already angry. Seeing the despair in the girl's eyes, he very naturally thought of his own situation. Putting himself in her shoes, how could Xiao Hua not understand that the girl's heart was like dead ashes and that if this matter really happened, she would rather die than live? A trace of murderous intent arose unconsciously. It's just that the other side had 6 people, all of them in the 5th layer of qi refining, and Xiao Hua himself was only in the 1st layer of qi refining. What could he use to kill people? Even if Xiao Yuehong gave him a stack of yellow talismans in his space, they would definitely be used for defense and escape. How could he use them to kill people? Seeing that the girl's beautiful face turned pale, Pai Lan and Xiong were very excited. They rubbed their hands and walked forward. That girl was naturally afraid and also naturally moved closer to Xiao Hua. She had long forgotten that the cultivation of the young man beside her was shallow. She only had a kind of grasping at straws to rely on him. What could Xiao Hua do? He couldn't escape, so he could only sigh. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. Two heroes. This junior has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it or not. One of the Pailon and Xianxia beamed. Since you know you shouldn't say it, then there's no need to say it. Cough cough. This junior is not acquainted with all of you, and has nothing to do with your grievances. But, this junior thinks that since it's just for the item, why don't we let this young lady take out the item? You can take it and release this young lady. And that's it. The heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. To be able to leave a person's life and accumulate a bit of virtue, that's also good. Pai Lan and Shuang Xiong's faces revealed an inconceivable expression, as if they didn't understand. The two of them slowly approached in a pincer formation, as if they didn't let down their guard. Their mouths, however, sneered. Little guy, with this kind of cultivation you can actually say such words. It seems like your courage isn't small. How did your master teach you? Just in the first layer of chi refining, you want to come out to gain experience? Since you want to come out to gain experience, you still haven't heard of my brother's reputation. If you know of my reputation, you'll naturally know why my brother won't let this girl go. Chapter 1249. Kaka, little brother, take a look. Did fellow Taoist Lu and the others say anything? Of course, Xiao Hua raised his eyes and swept his gaze over. Although the several people from before had surrounded the two of them, they were all far away from the twin blue bears. Their faces also carried a trace of contempt, as if they disdained to be associated with them. The face of the girl at the side was pale and she said softly, "This? Fellow Taoist, I'm really sorry for dragging you into this. This is a fireball talisman. I'll have to trouble you. If something happens to me, please hit me. I'll be eternally grateful." As she spoke, she handed over a yellow talisman brimming with vital energy fluctuations. Xiao Hua frowned slightly and reached out to receive it. The girl's eyes were filled with gratitude as she said, "Fellow Taoists, these twin blue bears have always been lecherous, taking pleasure in torturing corpses. Fellow Taoist, no need to say anything more." As she spoke, she patted her waist and took out several yellow talismans. She gave a few to Xiao Hua and said, "Fellow Taoist, these are several yellow talismans. Please accept them. You and I are now fighting side by side. At that time, we shared a common hatred. I don't know how many yellow talismans fellow Taoist has, so I'll use them first." Looking at the yellow talismans in his hand, Xiao Hua almost wanted to laugh bitterly. His magic power was at the first level of the aura refining realm. He didn't know if he could activate these yellow talismans. But thinking about it, this girl was at the 5th level of the aura refining realm. She probably knew he could use them. So he nodded slightly. His right hand took a yellow talisman and held it in front of his chest. His left hand took out several others and placed them to the side. Seeing the two people take out yellow talismans, the twin blue bears didn't hesitate. They patted their hands and similarly took out 2 yellow talismans. With a wave of their hands, the yellow talismans transformed into an earthen yellow brilliance that enveloped the two people. These yellow talismans were different from the golden bell talisman from before. They didn't form a light barrier. Instead, they stuck to the two people's bodies and disappeared without a trace. "Iron cloak talisman," the girl muttered. "This high-grade yellow talisman must have been bought by this guy, at a high price." "High-grade yellow talisman?" Hearing the girl's words, Xiao Hua couldn't help but stare blankly. He inwardly said, "This thing probably spent a lot of spirit stones on the market?" However, at this moment, the twin blue bears were already within 3 meters. "Manyu, look at my yellow talisman." Xiao Hua snorted and sent the meager amount of magic power in his body into the yellow talisman. With a flick of his hand, the talisman immediately exploded and a large fireball appeared with a bang. The surrounding world's origin energy swarmed over. Looking at the fireball, it was at least 3 to 4 times smaller than the one that the girl had released. Following Xiao Hua's gesture, the fireball flew towards the twin bears. "Ha ha ha," Pailon and the twin bears laughed so hard that they almost bent over. Even the people around them covered their mouths. Indeed, how big would you expect a first-layer Qi refining disciple to shoot out a fireball? But just as everyone was laughing at him, Xiao Hua slapped his left hand, and a flying talisman appeared on his body. With a burst of magic power, his figure followed the fireball and charged towards one of the two pylon bears. Oh my god, someone who doesn't know the difference between life and death actually came knocking on my door? The twin blue bears leaned forward as if they didn't care. They had iron cloak talismans on their bodies, which absolutely couldn't be broken by a low-level Qi refining disciple. However, Xiao Hua's flying speed was very fast. The twin blue bears didn't feel anything when facing Xiao Hua, but the four people next to him were flabbergasted. Ah! How can he be so fast? Even the girl behind Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. This speed was far from what she could match. Everyone was astonished. The twin blue bears were even more caught unprepared. When Xiao Hua approached them, even though the twin blue bears' eyes were somewhat flustered, they were still full of ridicule. Xiao Hua also didn't neglect them. As soon as he arrived in front of one of the twin blue bears, he immediately raised his hand and grabbed the arm of one of the twin blue bears. That person stared blankly, and his face became even more disdainful. Not to mention the iron cloak talismans on his body and the true Qi protecting his body, he wasn't afraid of the martial arts on his hands and feet. One of the reasons why the twin blue bears were called bears was because these two people had cultivated body-refining techniques and martial arts with their fists and feet. One of the twin blue bears waved his hand, wanting to block Xiao Hua's hand, but Xiao Hua's hand moved in an unknown way and unexpectedly dodged his hand. That seemingly very delicate hand still grabbed his arm. In an instant, an incomparably huge force was transmitted from the twin blue bear's arms. Ayo, this is bad. Although that person didn't know what was going to happen next, he already had a vague feeling in his heart that something was wrong. Sure enough, just as he was thinking that something bad was going to happen, a fist suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Pa pa pa! This fist instantly struck the twin blue bears' faces 3 times in a row. Ah! The twin blue bears who were struck by Xiao Hua's fists let out blood-curdling screams. It seemed that the first punch had already caused them to suffer heavy injuries, and the following 2 punches were even more frightening. Xiao Hua's fists, without exception, struck the same place on the twin blue bears' faces. It was merely 2 punches, but the twin blue bears' faces actually emitted a burst of chaotic brilliance. Voila! A crisp sound rang out. It was actually the sound of the iron cloak talisman being broken. This crisp sound was extremely weak, and also extremely familiar. However, in everyone's ears, it was no different from a sudden clap of thunder in the sky. With merely 2 punches, this youngster actually broke a high-level iron cloak talisman. Was this the cultivation of a first-level Qi refining cultivator? In an instant everyone thought of something else. I'll leave it to you, little girl. Xiao Hua let out a long laugh, then turned around and flew towards the other twin blue bears. His flying speed was even faster. This speed confirmed some people's thoughts. The girl cried out in delight. Yes, senior! As she spoke, the sword talisman in her hand moved again. A long sword flew towards the twin blue bears whose iron cloak talisman had been broken. Xiao Hua turned around, and without any pretense, he casually raised his fist and smashed it towards the other twin blue bears. That person was already terrified. He thought that Xiao Hua was a nascent soul cultivator who had concealed his cultivation level. How could he still dare to fight back? He cried out, Senior, please spare me. His figure flew up, desperately flying backwards. The instant he flew up, Xiao Hua's fist also arrived. It hit his waist. This time, Xiao Hua's strength was even greater. He had used up all his strength. With a crisp walla sound, that iron cloak talisman was broken in one fell swoop. Run! The 4 spectators no longer dared to hesitate. They glanced at each other, then scattered and flew away. As for the twin blue bears that the girl's sword talisman attacked, although their defenses were broken by Xiao Hua, they had already used their flying talismans. When the small sword attacked, they flew into the air. Where do you think you're going? Xiao Hua shouted. He turned around and seemed to chase after that person. His fist also flew over. That person's face had already changed color. He didn't dare to stay any longer and fled without looking back. You want to run? It's not that easy. The girl shouted. She also used her flying talisman. Her figure jumped up, and she was just about to chase. How could Xiaohua let her chase? He hurriedly pulled her hand, looked around, picked a direction and flew away. Senior! When the girl saw Xiaohua grab her wrist, her face flushed red. She wanted to break free, but then she calmed down and said in a low voice, Senior, why didn't you kill the twin blue bears? They are extremely notorious in this area. How could Xiaohua have the time to explain to her? Just now, he also took a risk and tested his strength. Sure enough, he was able to break the twin blue bear's so-called high-grade iron cloak talisman. It gave them the misconception that he was a great expert and could defeat them with just his body. But there were many flaws in this. If he carefully thought about it, how could he not know? Presumably, the 6 of them would wake up as soon as they flew halfway. Xiaohua's flying speed was very fast. They might not be able to catch up, but this girl was different. Xiaohua could only take advantage of the fact that the 6 of them were still confused and quickly pull this girl away. The further the better. The girl didn't understand Xiaohua's actions, but he was a nascent soul senior. He was enough to be her grandmaster. How could she dare to ask more? However, under the pull of the nascent soul stage senior's hand, the young lady felt an enormous force pulling her along. The speed of their flight was indeed much faster than hers. However, after flying for 2 hours, the young lady felt that something was wrong. This nascent soul senior's flying speed was admittedly fast, but it didn't seem to be as awesome as she had imagined. Moreover, it seemed that Foundation establishment seniors all used magic tools to fly. Why did this senior keep using flying talismans? And the most important thing was that this nascent soul senior actually only used his magic power to protect her body. It wasn't as she had imagined, to protect her as well. It seemed he didn't have any intention of taking care of her. Another 2 hours passed. Xiaohua, this nascent soul senior, actually reached out and took out a flying talisman from his bosom. With a wave of his hand, he slapped it on his body. He actually replaced the flying talisman that had just lost its spiritual energy. This time, the girl really didn't understand the situation. Nascent soul senior still needs to rely on flying talismans to fly? The girl pondered for a moment and asked in a low voice. Unexpectedly, Xiaohua simply ignored her. He only lowered his head and looked all around as if he was looking for something. Soon after, his face lit up with joy and his figure flew down. The girl followed the direction of his descent and saw that it was a mountain range. Xiaohua brought the girl to the ground and found a secluded place. It was precisely a place that was blocked by several mountain rocks and couldn't be seen from the sky. Only then did he loosen his hand and take the lead to walk over. Upon seeing this, the girl slightly hesitated. Standing in front of the mountain rocks, she bowed and saluted. Junior Luyang's Wuxia greets Senior. Senior, thank you for saving my life. Xiaohua saw her appearance and knew that Wuxia was worried about him. He couldn't help but laugh inwardly. The one who should be worried should be me. Wuxia had been secretly sizing up Xiaohua all along. Seeing a smile at the corner of Xiaohua's mouth, she immediately said, Senior, perhaps you haven't heard of Luyang's Kai clan, but I'm sure you've heard of Qingyuan's Kai clan. Senior, please know that my Luyang's Kai clan is a branch of Qingyuan's Kai clan. Soon after she said somewhat awkwardly, but because we haven't been in contact for a long time, and there hasn't been a Foundation establishment cultivator in the clan for a long time. So, clan? Xiaohua stared blankly. Chapter 1250. Senior. Could it be that you don't believe Junior? Wuxia couldn't help but smile bitterly. Junior knows that Senior must come from a famous sect and is a famous nascent soul cultivator on the Dawn Rain continent. Of course you look down on cultivator families like us. Not to mention, my Luyang Kai clan is only a cultivator family, so we can't enter Senior's eyes. But my Qingyuan Kai clan also once had an ancestor who was an elder of the Kunlun sect. Even now, the Kunlun sect often selects disciples from my Kai clan. It's just that my Luyang Kai clan hasn't had an outstanding disciple for a long time. So, we lost our precious quota. Junior. Wuxia stopped speaking and stole a glance at Xiao Hua's expression. Hearing Wuxia say so much in one breath and not letting him speak, Xiao Hua more or less understood the meaning of these so-called cultivator families. They should be one level lower than cultivator sects like Shanghuaming and Hundred Herbs Gate, but they were much stronger than ordinary families. These families had very deep foundations and their disciples all had very good cultivation aptitudes, so they could cultivate more easily than ordinary people. However, he heard the sect leader say that there were many cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent who could only cultivate to the aura refining stage. Presumably, these cultivator families were like this. Of course, according to Wuxia's meaning, this Kai clan also had some Kunlun sect elders, so they had the capital of, when one person achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs can ascend to heaven. This was how they obtained the shelter of their elders and made their clan qualified to cultivate. Seeing that Xiao Hua's expression didn't change, Wuxia was somewhat discouraged. She bit her lip and raised her head to look into the distance again. She muttered, "Junior? The reason why I'm telling Senior all this isn't because I have other intentions. It's just that Senior just saved Junior's life. Junior knows that Senior's cultivation base is profound and you don't care about Junior's repayment. However, Junior still wants to ask for Senior's celestial title. I hope Senior will engrave it in my heart so that in the future, if there's a chance, Junior can repay Senior." Towards the end, Wuxia's voice had already become much softer. In her cultivation clan, nascent soul cultivators were tantamount to an unattainable existence. Speaking of repayment, how could this be possible? Wuxia's original intention was perhaps to get closer to Xiao Hua so that she could have some kind of opportunity in the future. Therefore, her heart felt weak and her voice seemed to float away. Seeing that Wuxia had finally finished speaking and was giving him a chance to speak, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly at first. Then, he obediently bowed and said, "Senior, please don't say that. I am not a senior. I'm only at the first layer of the Qi refining realm, not some nascent soul cultivator like Senior said." "This is impossible." Wuxia covered her mouth in surprise. Although she had doubts just now, she had already dispelled them in her heart. Now that she heard it with her own ears, how could she still believe it? "Senior, you should come over. If you are seen by the Blue Bear duo again, I'm afraid we won't be able to scare them this time." Xiao Hua looked at the mountain rock above his head and said somewhat anxiously. Oh, hearing the name Pai Lon Twin Bears, Wuxia felt a chill run down her spine. In addition, Xiao Hua was only a first-layer aura refining disciple who didn't enter the sect. Compared to her own fifth-layer aura refining cultivation, Wuxia walked in without hesitation. "Are you really in the first layer of Qi refining? Which sect are you from? With such a low cultivation level, why did the sect send you out alone? Why don't you follow a senior brother with a high cultivation level? Where are you going?" Wuxia stood not far from Xiao Hua. Her eyes were wide open as she curiously looked at this young man whose cultivation level really couldn't be brought to the table. Xiao Hua was somewhat embarrassed. He didn't expect Wuxia to say so much to herself just now, and now unexpectedly ask so many questions in one breath. Moreover, he still remembered fellow Taoist Li's words from last night, so he didn't want to answer any of these questions. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua said, "Didn't Senior already see that Junior's cultivation level is indeed at the first layer of Qi refining? It's just that Junior's strength is great. Just now, Junior took advantage of the Blue Bear duo's carelessness and caught them off guard. Otherwise, when this Junior destroyed the Iron Cloak talisman of one of the twin bears of Pai Lon, I should have directly killed him. But this Junior was afraid of provoking the anger of the other person. If they didn't run and fought with this Junior would definitely be killed. Fortunately, they actually ran away. Junior had no choice but to let them go." Seeing Xiao Hua's helpless expression, as if he was very unwilling to scare them away, she couldn't help but laugh. "I didn't expect your strength to be so great. You were actually able to destroy a high-grade yellow talisman. I really didn't dare to imagine it." Wuxia's face was full of smiles. "Moreover, you also flew extremely fast." Speaking up to here, Wuxia seemed to have thought of something and her face revealed a pleasant surprise. However, her eyes spun a few times before she said, "Moreover, You flew extrememely fast and looked very young. Not only me, but the other 6 people also regarded you as a nascent soul senior. Ah, but why? Xiaohua was somewhat baffled. What's so strange about that? Seeing this, Wuxia smiled and said, You flew very fast, far surpassing us 5th-level aura refining cultivators. If nothing unexpected happened, you should be at least at the 12th level of aura refining. Since you're at the 12th level of aura refining, your age should be at least 30 or 40 years old. However, you look only 16 or 17 years old. If you didn't reconstruct your body when you stepped into nascent soul realm, how could you appear so young? Reconstructing a body in nascent soul realm? Xiaohua wrinkled his brows. This was the first time he'd heard of this. Wuxia seemed to have not forgotten to investigate Xiaohua's background. She bowed again and said, No matter what, fellow Taoist still saved my life. I'll remember this favor. In the future, if there's fate, I ask fellow Taoist to come to Luyang's Kai clan. That's right, fellow Taoist. May I know which mountain range you're a loose cultivator in? If it's appropriate, I'd like to pay a visit to your clan. In addition, there's another matter I want to discuss with fellow Taoist. Loose cultivator? Xiaohua stared blankly. He asked curiously, What's a loose cultivator? Indeed, during the 3 years Xiaohua was at Shanghua Ming, Xiao Yuehong only taught him the first layer of Shanghua Ming's immortal art. There were also many cultivation techniques related to spiritual plants and other cultivation techniques. Regarding the situation of Xiaoyu Continent's cultivation world, there was very little information. Furthermore, Gong Mingwei and the other 2 were even more focused on cultivation. Aside from the new happenings in Yi City, they very rarely talked to Xiaohua. It was no wonder that Xiaohua didn't understand. Could it be? Fellow Taoist isn't a loose cultivator? Wuxia was even more surprised. She opened her mouth and said, Since fellow Taoist is from a sect, why is your aptitude? Speaking up to here, she felt that it was inappropriate. She hastily covered her mouth and said, Fellow Taoist, please don't blame me. In the country of Shi's cultivation sects, regardless of their size, their disciples all have extraordinary aptitudes. Their cultivation is all at the 7th level of Qi refining and above. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist would still be at the 1st level of Qi refining at such an age. Oh, I forgot again. What's fellow Taoist's name? Which sect are you from? Wuxia slapped her forehead in realization. Xiaohua scratched his head. His expression was slightly awkward. He smiled and said, Reporting to Senior, I'm called Xiaohua. As for which sect? I hope Senior can forgive me. It's not convenient for me to tell you. It's fine, it's fine. Wuxia waved her hand repeatedly. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please don't mind me. I shouldn't have asked you in detail. It's just that I have something to discuss with fellow Taoist Xiao, so I asked a bit more. However, since fellow Taoist Xiao belongs to a sect, how come you don't even know about loose cultivators? Senior, I've just reached the 1st level of Qi refining and haven't been accepted into the sect by the sect master. There are many things I don't know, Xiaohua said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't have to call me Senior. You can just call me fellow Taoist. Wuxia also smiled and said, Sure enough, your noble sect has its rules. You won't be accepted into the sect unless you're at the 3rd level of Qi refining. If you were in my Kai clan, fellow Taoist, although you're only at the 1st level of Qi refining, you have the ability to fly and have great strength. You'd certainly be regarded as a pillar. Wuxia's words were a bit insincere. The 1st level of Qi refining was the most basic cultivation level. Even if it was a cultivation clan, with low-level cultivation methods, they could still nurture a person with the same cultivation level as Xiaohua. How could they regard him as important as she said? Xiaohua didn't know about this and only nodded slightly. As for loose cultivators, they're cultivators who don't belong to a sect outside of various cultivation sects and cultivation clans. They're cultivators who cultivate alone and don't belong to a sect. Oh, I understand, fellow Taoist Kai. Xiaohua nodded. Then, where do loose cultivators get their cultivation methods? First, there are cultivation methods. Afterwards, there are loose cultivators. Wuxia said, It's precisely because some people obtained cultivation methods but can't be assigned to a sect that they cultivate alone. Aren't cultivation methods rare in Xiaoyu continent? Where did these loose cultivators get them? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Wuxia glanced at Xiao Hua. He has a sect, so he should know more than her. How could he ask such a superficial question? Xiaoyu continent's cultivation methods are naturally rare. My country's cultivation methods are even rarer. However, this rarer cultivation method refers to cultivation methods that can be cultivated to foundation establishment or even golden core. As for those incomplete cultivation methods or cultivation methods that can only be cultivated to the various levels of qi refining, they can still occasionally appear. Just now, fellow Taoist Xiao encountered Pai Lan, the twin bears, and the others are all loose cultivators. They just happened to obtain nameless cultivation methods and set foot on the path of cultivation. It's just that their actions are completely based on their own likes and dislikes. They don't follow any rules, which is completely different from fellow Taoist Xiao who has a sect. Xiao Hua understood. Disciples like him have the backing of a sect. They have cultivation methods and resources. They also have senior brothers and senior sisters. All of them have good self-cultivation. They won't act against some cultivators for no reason. After all, they still have to consider whether or not other people will retaliate against their own sect. Their actions and conduct will also be somewhat methodical. But loose cultivators are different. They are all unorthodox. What kind of restrictions are there to speak of? Moreover, the so-called loose cultivators don't have a sect. They don't have any cultivation resources. They completely rely on methods like smashing, and robbing to make a name for themselves. Let alone a cultivation aristocratic family. Even if it's a cultivation sect, they won't let go of an opportunity. A qi refining stage cultivator like Wuxia is a good target for loose cultivators to rob. Pai Lan, the twin bears, and the others. Aren't they such people? Chapter 1251. By the way, fellow Taoist Xiao, did you come out this time to gain experience? Wuxia asked again. No. Xiao Hua shook his head. I have some matters to attend to. Medicine Farmer Peak. Xiao Hua thought that he might have to ask Wuxia about the location of Medicinal Farmer Peak in a while, so he revealed some information. Oh, fellow Taoist Xiao wants to go to the 100 Herbs Gate. What a pity. Wuxia's tone was a little disappointed, but there was a hint of envy in her eyes. Clearly, this 100 Herbs sect was one of the famous sects in the state of Xi. A pity? Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback and asked curiously, why is that? This. Wuxia was a little hesitant. Since fellow Taoist Xiao has something to do, I don't think it's convenient for you to talk about it. Let's not talk about this matter anymore. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. Just now, Wuxia said that she wanted to talk to him about something, but she didn't say anything. Presumably, it was this MOT matter. If it's inconvenient for fellow Kai, there's no need to mention it. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Sigh, actually. Fellow Taoist Xiao would be the most suitable person to handle this matter. It's just that. If you're unlucky, you can't do it. Wuxia still sighed, feeling very regretful. However, if fellow Taoist Xiao is busy now, I wonder if you have time to make a trip to the 1,000 Feet Peak half a year later? 1,000 Zhang Peak. Where is it? After Wuxia told him the location, Xiao Hua pondered for a moment. Hearing Wuxia's tone and thinking about the matter of Pai Lan, Xiong and the others just now, he faintly felt that there was something fishy going on, so he asked, if I can't go down, how about I ask my senior martial brother or senior martial sister to go down? What do you think? Don't. Wuxia's expression changed when she heard that. She quickly waved her hand and said, fellow Taoist Xiao. This matter is to repay fellow Taoist for saving my life. If fellow Taoist is too busy to go, then so be it. Please allow me to find an opportunity to repay you in the future. Just forget about your sect's elders and elders. Even if they know they might not go. Xiao Hua nodded and said thoughtfully, fellow Taoist Kai didn't say anything, so how would I know if it's worth going? Don't worry, fellow cultivator. You're my savior. Although I'm from a cultivation family, I know how to repay kindness. Moreover, I do need a helper to go to the 1,000 feet peak. You're the best helper, Wuxia said sincerely. Xiaohua thought to himself, half a year later, the Peiyuan pill would have been refined long ago, and senior martial brother and senior martial sister's cultivation levels would have also improved. Moreover, the Linglong grass would have just sprouted not too long ago, so the foundation building pill definitely wouldn't be able to be refined. I don't have anything to do on Xihua Peak, so why don't I go with her to Thousandjiang Peak? Since she has already explained her background, I only need to tell the sect master the whole story half a year later. Even if this Wuxia wants to harm me, she still has to consider the safety of her family. Just now, she thought that I was a nascent soul senior, so what she said must be true. Since she said that senior martial brothers won't go, presumably, there won't be too much danger. Thinking up to this point, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoist. Since fellow Taoist has the heart, then I'll do my best to go." Hearing this, Wuxia was overjoyed. She took out a summoning talisman from her bosom and handed it over, saying, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please accept this summoning talisman. If you arrive at the 1,000 feet peak half a year later, you can send it out. If fellow Taoist doesn't have time to go, then you can keep it. When you arrive at Luyang town, send it out and I'll do my best as a host." Xiaohua accepted it with a smile and put it away. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist Kai, I'm in a hurry so I won't stay here any longer. I don't know if the Pai and Lan duo can find this place. If they can, then fellow Taoist can stay here for a while." The Pai and Lan duo may discover that something is wrong with fellow Taoist Xiao, but all rogue cultivators are cowards. They may not chase after you. Fellow Taoist, please leave. I'll rest for a while and also leave. Wuxia cupped her hands and said, "That's good." Xiaohua nodded. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "I don't know. Does fellow Taoist Kai know the location of Medicine Nong Peak?" "What?" Wuxia was slightly stunned, but she immediately understood. She covered her mouth and laughed, saying, "The direction that fellow Taoist Xiao is leading is precisely towards Medicine Nong Peak. When I heard it just now, I thought fellow Taoist Xiao was taking me here in passing." Xiaohua scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry, I'm indeed lost. From here to Medicine Nong Peak is only a few hundred miles away. With fellow Taoist Zhao's flying speed, I'm afraid you'll arrive in a few hours? Thank you, fellow Taoist Kai. We'll meet again someday." Xiaohua cupped his hands and saluted. He looked around and saw that there were no abnormalities in the sky. He then turned around and looked at Wuxia, who followed him out. He put a flying talisman on his body and his figure flew like an arrow towards Medicine Nong Peak. Seeing that Xiaohua's speed was much faster than hers, Wuxia quietly stood there until Xiaohua's figure disappeared. She then sighed, "First-level aura refining has this kind of flying speed. Moreover, he's so strong that he can actually break the Iron Cloak talisman. It's a pity that he's so old. I really don't know if this Xiaohua is a genius or a good-for-nothing." Alas, this kind of strangeness. I'm afraid he's comparable to little sister. Only, this kind of strange person, which sect does he belong to? There aren't many famous sects in the country of Xi. If I have time, I'll have to carefully investigate. Wuxia stood there for a moment. She also took out a flying talisman from her storage pouch and directly flew in another direction. Xiaohua flew in the air, unable to conceal the excitement in his heart. Last night, when he broke free from the confinement talisman, he already had a faint feeling in his heart that he should have discovered a divine ability that others didn't have, and that was to break through with force. However, last night, he only had a feeling and couldn't confirm it. After all, this kind of divine ability was indeed strange. He'd never heard Xiao Yuehong and the others mention it. And this morning, before he could wake up from his sleep, he was dragged into trouble by Wuxia. He was only a first-level aura refining disciple. In the eyes of the sixth-level aura refining experts, he wasn't worth mentioning. Moreover, the rogue cultivators wanted to kill Xiaohua to silence him. Therefore, in a situation where Xiaohua didn't have any power to fight back, he had no choice but to take the risk and take out the divine ability he just discovered. Fortunately, Xiaohua's strength wasn't just for show. He really could break through with force and break the iron cloak talisman of the pylon twin bears. Of course, to kill the pylon twin bears on the spot, Xiaohua still didn't have the strength to do so. Because Xiaohua used his fists to break the iron cloak talisman of the pylon twin bears, relying on being caught off guard, relying on the other party's carelessness. As long as the other party was on guard and pulled apart the distance, although Xiaohua's flying speed was extremely fast, if they threw one yellow talisman after another, Xiaohua would definitely be killed before he could get close. This was also the reason why Xiaohua didn't dare to rashly kill one of the pylon twin bears, lest it arouse the other party's anger. And most importantly, after Xiaohua broke the iron cloak talisman of the pylon twin bears, he clearly saw that one of the pylon twin bears' hands had already taken out the other yellow talisman. Therefore, he left this person to Wuxia, while he himself attacked the other person, giving others the illusion that he was in control of the overall situation, that he was fighting 1 against 2. 6th level of the Qi refining realm. Xiaohua's heartbeat sped up. Those are great experts in the middle stage of the Qi refining realm. I actually scared them away, hee. Even if I told second senior martial brother, he wouldn't necessarily believe it. However, using force to break through can only be used as a surprise attack method. It can only be effective when I get close. But normally, when fighting, it's magic power and talismans, how can they let me get close? Therefore, increasing my cultivation is the way of the king. Xiaohua rolled up his sleeves to show off the muscles on his arms, thinking to himself, Wuxia actually regards me as a nascent soul stage senior. My goodness, I also don't know if I'll have the opportunity to advance to the foundation establishment stage in this lifetime, let alone the nascent soul stage. They really think too highly of me. Crap, there's someone in front. Xiaohua saw some brilliance in front of him from afar, as if there were people fighting. He immediately lowered his altitude and hid in a place to watch from afar. In the past, he didn't know what individual cultivators were, but now that he received Wuxia's guidance, he finally understood. If these cultivators who didn't belong to any school or sect wanted to improve their cultivation, if they didn't seek out other people's misfortune or rob other people's things, how could they improve? That fellow Taoist Chong from before was probably an individual cultivator, right? He actually didn't even let off a first-level Qi refining disciple like himself. Xiaohua hid for a moment, but when he saw that the flashing brilliance in front of him didn't weaken in the slightest, he knew the fight was still going on. He thought for a moment, looked left and right, and circled around from the side, determined not to get close to them. Just like that, Xiaohua became cautious. Whenever he sensed any warning signs, he would immediately flee. Unexpectedly, he spent half the time Wuxia estimated before he arrived in front of a mountain range. During these several hours, Xiaohua had seen more than 10 Qi refining cultivators. No matter whether their cultivation level was high or low, Xiaohua felt that these people's faces were engraved with the labels of robbery and silencing. His heart couldn't help but feel uneasy. Even when he arrived in front of this mountain range, 3 second and third level Qi refining cultivators flew out from the mountain range and blocked his path. His heart still skipped a beat, and he inwardly said, "Crap, how did I end up in front of them? This guy. Does he want to take my life?" Just when he was thinking about whether he should hide and circle around from the side, or take advantage of their unpreparedness to break through their defenses and kill them, he heard one of the third-level Qi refining cultivators coldly shout, "Which sect's disciple is in front of you? Don't you know this is my 100 Herbs Gate's territory?" 100 Herbs Gate? When Xiaohua heard this, he was secretly delighted. When he looked at that cultivator again, the bad look on his face had already disappeared, and he appeared very sanctimonious. "Strange," Xiaohua inwardly exclaimed. "Just now, I didn't know this person was a 100 Herbs Gate disciple. I felt that he wasn't safe from head to toe, but after hearing that he's a 100 Herbs Gate disciple, why do I feel that he won't harm me? This definitely isn't right. Even if they aren't individual cultivators and are 100 Herbs Gate disciples, if I lose my vigilance, the one who will suffer in the end will still be me." As he thought this, Xiaohua stopped and cupped his hands in salute, saying, "This one is Xiaohua of Shanghua Ming. I've come to seek an audience with sect leader Jiang on the orders of my sect's sect leader. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian.com to vote for it." You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.